welcome you to Monday, final week of November, and hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving, because it certainly hasn't been too happy since then. Laura Rutledge is with us, and Laura, there have been so many things happening. I don't know where to begin, so if any of you, I know it's a cliche, have been in a cave or in some foreign country or in outer space, which would include a few of you, this is what has transpired just over the weekend. Thursday night, Laura, you were there. Ole Miss winning the Egg Bowl.
This was big and huge for Matt Luke. Obviously, I do believe that this influenced the fact that he would become the new head coach for Ole Miss, removing the interim tag there. And congrats to him. It's crazy that Ole Miss's hiring just really doesn't even seem to factor into all the bigger news stories that are going on right now. One of the craziest weekends in all of college sports.
Friday night, just seconds after his team lost to Missouri for the second straight year, Brett Bielema, thanks for coaching today, but you're fired. He's gone. Communicated with Brett over the weekend. He and Jen doing well. Very classy farewell for
He'll
Brett
get another
Bielema.
chance somewhere.
He
It
should.
just matters of when he wants
Then
to
Saturday
take it.
night, don't want to bury the lead here, but Auburn beat the number one team in the country again. Auburn now heads to Atlanta for the SEC championship, and that is about the ninth most important story of this day.
And that's crazy, and I can't wait to hear from Alabama fans today, Auburn fans today. I want to make sure that we give credit to this Auburn Tigers team. They did what many thought would not be possible, Paul, and it's incredible to see the way that they shone on that big stage. Jarrett Stidham, one of the best stories in all of college football.
And in the least surprising news of the college football season, A&M fired Kevin Sumlin. That story broke yesterday afternoon, although most people knew this was a fait accompli. This was going to happen, and it finally did. Oh, yeah, Florida hired Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen was weighing his options, thought about Tennessee, and then decided, you know what, I think I'll go to Florida. I've been there before.
Some people calling this a safe hire. I think that was a smart hire.
And in the most shocking story, I think, of the college football season, Tennessee set to hire Greg Schiano. He's the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. And then hours after the story broke, about 1 o'clock Eastern time, and then at 8 o'clock, they backed out of a deal. They had not a signed contract, but a signed agreement, at least an intent, a letter of intent. And that has been the raging controversy since then. Exactly what does that mean? And then late last night, to the surprise of very few people, Ole Miss hired Matt Luke. So a lot of changes going on. Arkansas hasn't done well since Petrino. Tennessee, neither has A&M. They're all gone. Someone looking pretty good there. Someone at 662 would get a raise at several SEC schools.
That's right. And by the way, we haven't talked about Arkansas yet. Unfortunately, that's sort of lower on the list with all the craziness that's gone on at Tennessee. But I do think a name to look out for could potentially be somebody like Charlie Strong, who I know USF fans don't want to hear it, but
well, state fans didn't want to hear about Dan Mullen. They said he was not going to leave.
Yeah, and Charlie, you know, when I saw him a few weeks ago, I told you about this. We asked him about the rumors that would be out there. At that point, he hadn't been contacted by anybody, but I would imagine that at this point, there could be some conversations being had. He knows Arkansas well. I don't know how Arkansas fans would feel about that, but I think it would be a nice hire. And right now, I mean, to me, Arkansas has to make a big splash. The funny thing will be, you know, Gus Malzahn is sitting so pretty right now, and people talked about the rumors of him maybe looking at Arkansas, his home state. But why would he leave Auburn unless he could play Arkansas against Auburn a little bit and get himself more money if he felt like he wanted that?
And by the way, what do you hear on the Arkansas job?
Your guess is as good as mine. At this stage, nobody knows anything, so you have to think that you hit it on the head earlier when you mentioned the fact that I think they're waiting to see what happens with Gus. And I think that if he loses, he'll certainly be offered the job. If he wins, he's certainly going to say where he is, I would think. So
there's no way you can't. I don't think Arkansas can sit around and wait 30 days for Gus Malzahn.
Not at the stage of sitting there without an athletic director either, which is a huge thing going on right now. Is who they're going to get for that position.
You know, I talked to somebody from Fayetteville yesterday. He actually mentioned Tommy Tuberville's name. Have you heard that?
I had heard that a month ago.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that laughable. I think Tuberville might be pretty good out there. SEC teams to change head coaches since Alabama was ranked outside the CFP top 40. Look at this list. This last time this happened was early in November in 2014. A lot of turnover. 10 teams in all. Not a big surprise. This league has seen some turnover, and it may not be over yet. Let's check in with Jacob in Arkansas. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. Gus Malzahn, I just want to bring up, when he was at Arkansas State, he was making $800,000 a year. He was the third highest paid public employee, and he said he loves this place. He would never leave. Well, obviously that's not true. So he's sitting there at Auburn, and I definitely believe win on Saturday, lose on Saturday, he will end up coming to Arkansas. Personally, I don't think his word is any good, but as a football coach, obviously, he knows the X's and O's.
If you were looking in the dictionary for a word to describe what happened this last week with the coaching carousel in the SEC, you might not find an accurate one. There's only so many times you can say bizarre, wild, crazy, topsy-turvy. And from Dan Mullen leaving Mississippi State and going to Florida, to the roller coaster ride in Knoxville, to Jimbo Fisher joining the SEC, going to Texas A&M. If you didn't get a chance to catch your breath with all of it, here's a recap of a week that felt like almost more than a month.
Let's talk about the SEC coaching carousel.
Was last week the strangest week you've been through in your time in Florida?
Really, my whole 4 years has been really strange to me. I mean, I've been through, 9 quarterbacks now, and 4 years, 2 head coaches. I don't think you get any strange than that.
It is my great pleasure to introduce the new head football coach of the Florida Gators, Dan Mullen.
Ready to go. And I can promise you I will give relentless effort in everything I do to make sure that we return the football program to a national championship level.
Mississippi State has a new man, Joe Moorhead.
Thanks and appreciation to Coach Mullen and his staff here through the 9 years. Number 2 goal of our program is to make sure the dang Egg Bowl stays home. All right, right here, all right?
I was informed that no longer be the coach at Arkansas. Never been let go in my entire life, so this is the first for me. One of the greatest things that's come out of this is I have a beautiful daughter who forever will be born in Fayetteville.
Kevin Sumlin is out. Never had a losing season.
You go to sleep at night knowing that things are in a better place than certainly when I got here 6 years ago.
Jimbo Fisher has resigned and will be named the new coach at Texas A&M.
I want you to welcome the new head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels.
I've seen the culture of this team start to change. I'm looking forward to having a full off season to implement my vision for this program.
Tennessee's search for a head coach has gotten off to a rough start, to say the least. Ohio State defensive coordinator Greg Schiano agreed to a deal with the Vols, but the school backed out after a significant amount of backlash from fans and alumni. Now, Tennessee also reached out to former volunteer offensive coordinator David Cutcliffe, but the Duke head coach turned them down too. And then the school met with Mike Gundy, offered him a 6-year, $42 million deal, which the Oklahoma State head coach turned down.
Will the Volunteers be able to convince anybody to coach for them? Discussions ongoing with Purdue's Jeff Brom.
Sources told ESPN that former Texas A&M head coach Kevin Sumlin is someone the Vols plan to talk with.
Breaking news earlier, we just heard athletic director John Currie is out after what is being called an unfortunate, some say disastrous, coaching surge.
Former Tennessee Hall of Fame coach Philip Fulmer will be named the athletic director later today.
It will not be easy, and it will take some time, but we will succeed.
SEC Championship. Number 2 Auburn, number 6 Georgia. First quarter, Jarrett Stidham, Nate Craig Myers.
And Auburn off to a fast start this game. Marched right down the field, and then a play-action pass. Great play call right behind the linebacker.
Second quarter, Stidham in the pocket. Bellamy comes around the edge. Ball's loose.
This is a big play to kind of start changing momentum. Auburn scored a touchdown on their very first drive, but this one here, coughing it up, giving Georgia the football back down inside their red zone.
And then it's Jake from State Farm faking the toss. Isaac not.
And Georgia's so good at running the ball in this game that when they went play action pass, the linebackers, the safeties had to react.
Third quarter, Auburn down 10-7. Daniel Carlson kick block.
Just another miscue for the Auburn Tigers. Tremendous push up the middle by the field goal block team.
Early in the fourth quarter, Auburn's trailing at 13-7. Kerryon Johnson was limited. Here's the ball poked loose.
Kerryon Johnson just wasn't healthy in this game. Had the big game against Georgia a few weeks back. In this game, not healthy. You could see the shoulder was an issue. Couldn't stiff arm. He was protecting himself, and this one he puts it on the turf.
Mistakes killing Auburn. Fourth quarter, Georgia's now up 13-7 from Terry Godwin.
I think Jake Fromm was rattled the first time these two teams played, but he was dialed in this one, 16 for 22, and on that throw, no defense for a perfect pass.
Later in the fourth is DeAndre Swift. He'll make him an offer he can't refuse.
And we didn't see this at all in the first meeting. Georgia held to 46 yards rushing. Tonight in this game, 240 yards.
Saturday afternoon, you're right. Georgia's O-line, big boost.
Yeah, watch these guys get down the field here, double team, and they're actually putting Auburn D linemen into the ground. You don't see anybody do that. DeAndre Swift, the #1 rated prospect coming out of high school from the state of Pennsylvania. Just how loaded is Kirby Smart's running back group?
Love that illustration you guys put together. Georgia wins it convincingly, 28-7. Head coach Kirby Smart.
Should y'all be the one? Y'all beating everybody you played.
That's a bold statement. I'll be honest with you. This team, because there is no home field advantage, they're excited to be in the playoff. Hopefully be in the playoff, and we don't really concern ourselves with rankings. We never have, So what does it really matter? If you're 1 through 4, you're in the tournament. So that was our goal, and that's what we've achieved.
Congrats to Georgia. They did something that has only been done 5 times since NCAA classification began in 1937. They beat a team after losing to the same team by at least 20 points earlier in the season. The last to do it, Washington over Nebraska in 2010. Here's Coach Gus Malzahn.
They flipped the script on us from the last game, did exactly what we did. The first game, obviously, was a tough loss. We got off to a good start, and then we had some uncharacteristic things happen. We've played really good football the second half of the season. We had a blocked field goal, and I think we had 2 turnovers right there that were really tough. I'm happy here at Auburn. We got great players. I love my players. Like I said before this game, we've worked extremely hard to get here to this point. We got a very good foundation built, and I think the best is yet to come.
Gus, does that mean Arkansas should not bother asking you about their job?
I'm the head coach at Auburn. I just said that.
And you will be next year?
I want to be the head coach at Auburn, yeah.
And you will be next year?
I want to be.
Early on, Herschel Walker and Bo Jackson in the house watching their alma mater square out. That's a pretty cool shot right there. But here's the turning points that you guys are talking about. Tim, second quarter, Auburn up 7-0 and driving.
Jared's got to know better than this. You have the best field goal kicker in the country. You cannot give that away. It was the biggest play of the game, in my opinion, and it lost Auburn the SEC championship.
And but it's about mentality as well. Jared Stidham was never under this duress in the first game. He never expected his backside to be challenged. He was loose with the football, and he thought that he had time.
Get rid of it. It doesn't matter.
Third quarter, Dogs now up a field goal. Another big play, backed up in their own red zone.
Special teams. It's always a big part of the game. This would have tied the game up. Look, Tim is right. There were many times where momentum could have been reshifted. Georgia made the plays to take it away from Auburn, though.
Bike squad. Fourth quarter we go. Opening play of the fourth. Dogs clinging to a 6-point lead, and here's Kerryon Johnson.
And this was the second biggest play of the game, in my opinion. You cannot give that away. When your best players do not play well in a big game, you have no chance of winning. And Stidham and Kerryon Johnson did not show up and play the way they had the last 3 weeks.
Hey, that was your freak of the year, though. Lorenzo Carter punching the ball out.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's all right. Later in the fourth, DeAndre Swift, Marcus.
The offensive line took it personal.
For sure.
They've heard since Auburn game that they were punished, that the front four dominated them, that they weren't ready to compete in this game. They made it a point to get Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and DeAndre Swift going, and they did. And what they did was went back to what we know Georgia for. You know what they ran, Laura? They tossed the football. And when we see Georgia toss the football, usually it equates to success.
Yeah, and that means that Kirby Smart ends up dancing around after getting an ice bath after the end of this one. Georgia wins it 28-7. They are the SEC champions.
Coach,
You guys just played basically a de facto game to get in the playoff. Alabama's still in the mix, and with all the new coaching changes, what do you see for the future of this league?
It's the best league in college football, and I mean, you're talking about, you know, Alabama, Georgia, and of course, then I'd throw us in there. I mean, you know, I think it's a really good league. I think the future is very bright in our league, and like I said, I think our future is very bright, and I believe we're going to be back, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're back in this moment next year.
Okay, thank you, Coach. Thank you, guys.
And guys, we did join that Auburn press conference late. Just so everyone knows, Gus Malzahn was asked about whether or not he wants to stay at Auburn. He confirmed that he wants to be the head coach of the Auburn Tigers. So as things continue to swirl around this coaching carousel, he has been on record saying that he wants to stay there.
Speaking of Coach Watch 2017, Gus Malzahn has reportedly agreed to a new deal with Auburn. He was the rumored front runner for the Arkansas job. Now, this is according to 247sports.com, a report that just came out in the last hour or so. According to that report, Malzahn has agreed to a deal that would keep him at his current job. Now, the terms of that deal are unclear right now.
Drew in with you here, and some developments here within the past hour, really the past 30 minutes, as far as this Arkansas coaching search. Gus Malzahn from Auburn is now staying at Auburn, and that's after Arkansas made a play to get Gus to come back to Arkansas, but this time as the head coach. Mike.
Yeah, Drew, Gus Malzahn was believed to have been in Memphis this afternoon on a recruiting visit. Supposedly, Arkansas had provided him earlier with an offer of a long-term contract, something in the range of $7 million a year for 7 years and maybe a bonus after that. The Auburn deal is supposedly $7 million for 5 years. Arkansas is now expected to quickly move on their Plan B choice, which, depending on who you talk to, is either Mike Norvell of Memphis or SMU's Chad Morris. Now, one thing that could happen is the people who are willing to throw big bucks at Malzahn and hire him a big-time staff could instead use that money to load up the next coach's staff, bring in some quality recruiters and coordinators with strong reputations for winning. But that remains to be seen. Now, one other observation. I'm quite certain that Gus Malzahn did give the impression to some friends here in Arkansas who were boosters that he was serious about listening to an offer to come back home to Arkansas. Well, that offer came and it went, and he stayed at Auburn. So the Gus bus may have just blown a flat tire here in Arkansas, and that may not be a bad thing, because you know, we've heard this for 10 years now about how badly he wanted to come back here, and if he ever got the offer, he would do it, and he got the offer, and he didn't take it.
And I think everything that we saw there as far as the developments after the SEC title game yesterday would lend you to think, okay, maybe some scripted comments, you know, depending on what was going on with his agent.
I think there were people thought, because he wouldn't commit to Auburn. I think a lot of people thought, okay, yeah, he's coming.
Yeah.
And didn't happen.
Absolutely. All right. More from Mike here in just a bit. But who is the next target for Arkansas? Now, Mike mentioned Mike Norvell from Memphis being in the mix. Almost led the Tigers to the American Athletic Conference title yesterday, losing to UCF. Tara Talmadge has more on Mike's background.
Mike Norvell could soon be returning to the natural state. After graduating from the University of Central Arkansas, where he was once a wide receiver, Norvell went to Tulsa, where he spent 4 years before heading to Pittsburgh in 2011 to be the Panthers' co-offensive coordinator.
Good snaps, good.
The following year, Norvell becoming the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Arizona State, leading top 40 offenses for 4 consecutive years.
Make sure we're clearing it there, quarterbacks.
Norvell accepting his first head coaching job in 2016, taking over the helm of the Memphis football program. Over the past 2 seasons, Norvell is 18-7, leading the Tigers to a 10-win record this year for the second time in program history, and reaching the AAC title game for the first time ever. One of his strong suits is recruiting, signing the 2 highest-rated classes in program history, recruiting 13 of Memphis's current 22 starters.
Ferguson to throw.
Norvell is also known for developing quarterbacks, turning Memphis QB Riley Ferguson from a 3-star prospect out of high school into one of the nation's most prolific quarterbacks, a very crucial skill for the new head hog following the loss of Austin Allen.
And Tara Talmadge reporting. Tara, thanks very much for that report. And again, we have Mike back with us. And again, very fluid situation now that Gus is not coming to Arkansas, and he has a new deal at Auburn, which, by the way, was reported first by Brandon Marcello, a guy who has been on our game day show before. Some nice reporting from Brandon. But again, if you're a Hog fan who wanted Gus, loss. You're not feeling very good at this point, obviously, but where do you go from here?
Well, it's interesting because, again, what I'm hearing is there are a lot of people over at the university and people who are behind this search and this effort to bring him here who feel like there's a money issue over there. There's a lot of money tied up into that North End Zone project. They've already got some debt they're dealing with, and they're worried that if you don't get somebody in that can put people in those seats, you may have to have a student activities fee or something like that to help pay for all this, and that's something that hasn't been done at Arkansas. So whoever they hire, and that's why I think Mike Norvell may have an edge, is because at least he has a reputation of putting on a show. You go to watch his games and he scores a lot of points. Arkansas fans who saw that championship game yesterday he was involved in, I felt like Central Florida had the best talent, but he did a great job of getting that game into overtime. So it was fun to watch. But I think he's got to get a defense if he comes here.
If indeed Norvell is next up as far as the target for Arkansas in this coaching search, really to that point of what he did in late game situations yesterday, I like the fact that, in the clutch situations, he went to his best guys. And he's been doing it with guys that, they haven't really been these highly publicized players. We're talking about a walk-on, a guy who was a junior college transfer, did a lot of really nice things yesterday.
Yeah, he does have a reputation of getting the most out of three-star type players, which Arkansas has a lot of them on their roster right now. That's the other issue. How well can he recruit? Can he recruit like an SEC coach? And can he bring a staff in, an SEC quality staff? I think one of Brett Bielema's big problems was his staff went downhill. Yeah. He ended up at the end with guys that didn't have reputations as being recruiters, and their players, regardless the effort, the results show this, they didn't play for him.
Yeah, that's the thing, just the progress that he made at his Norvell, I think, with those guys that got on campus here at Memphis, because, this Memphis program now is really in the national spotlight. Justin Fuente did a great job before he went to Virginia Tech, handed over the reins, but they call Norvell in Memphis, at least some do, a rock star.
Yeah, they don't want him to leave, and I'm not saying he will, because there's a lot of sentiment for SMU's Chad Morris, too, with his recruiting ties in Texas. Every time a coach gets fired in Arkansas in any sport, they take what his perceived biggest weakness was, and some people are saying didn't recruit Texas, and now you got to get somebody that does that, which is what Chad Morris does. So
all right, so we will see as far as the transition here at Arkansas, whether it'll be Mike Norvell or somebody else on the hill coming in as the next head coach and the replacement for Brett Bielema.
Highest paid coaches. So Nick is first, Jimbo second, Harbaugh. Gus is now the fourth highest paid coach, tied with Harbaugh. And they both have one thing in common. Yeah, Gus did get to a championship game. Dan's up there. Rich Rodriguez is making $6 million a year.
Wow. And by the way, David Shaw's $5.7 million didn't go as far as some of these do in Palo Alto. Tom Herman, I thought Tom Herman was making more money, but only 5.5. That seems
these things
kind of small.
Kind of convoluted sometimes. You don't know what the bonuses are.
Well, that's true. And one thing I'd say is I really think this Jimbo Fisher deal just shook the entire market up, because now Nick Saban's saying, well, wait a second, I can't have Jimbo Fisher. People can start renegotiating here. The entire market in a year where we've seen buyouts really sort of cripple some schools and the people they're able to go after, just considering all the money that they pay. I think Tennessee's running into this a little bit, although they still seemingly have money to spend. But with buyouts and just the way that this whole market had already been really kind of exposed this year, now it's been elevated to a whole nother level just by Jimbo Fisher's deal.
Hog fans near and far have been on the edge of their seats throughout the day, waiting for the news that has finally come down tonight. The University of Arkansas hires a new athletic director. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ashley Katz. Bob has the evening off. The university confirming tonight that Hunter Yurachek from the University of Houston will be taking the title. Our Drew Ammon joins us live from Fayetteville now with more on this news breaking just a couple of hours ago. Drew.
Yeah, a lot going down this afternoon, Ashley. Thanks very much. The new man in charge, Razorback Athletics, as you mentioned, Hunter Yurachek from Houston. The day started with more and more talk swirling. That is, who will be the next head football coach at Arkansas and who will be the next AD on the hill for the Razorbacks. Here is part of the way the day unfolded. We were told after a 3-hour University of Arkansas Board of Trustees meeting that no votes nor any decisions have been made. Then roughly 2 hours later, Football Scoop first to report that Houston AD Hunter Yurachek resigned as AD of the Cougars to become AD at Arkansas. The Houston Chronicle shortly thereafter saying that that report is true. Yurachek, someone Houston promoted to become its AD back in April of 2015. Had 4 years left on a contract extension with an annual salary of $450,000. Let's get you some more info on Yurachek. He is a Richmond, Virginia native. Before Houston, it was a time for him at Coastal Carolina, where he worked with the Chanticleers as AD. Also stopped at Akron, where he was the Zips Executive Senior Associate AD. Also served in athletics administration at Virginia, Western Carolina, Vandy, and Wake Forest. And, of course, we will continue to follow this story and keep you updated on air and online. Much more coming up in sports. Ashley, we'll send it back to you in Little Rock.
Drew, thanks very much. The University of Arkansas Board of Trustees did meet today for about 3 hours in executive session. An agenda confirmed that the board did plan on discussing personnel. It's unclear what personnel positions were discussed. This session, though, comes about almost a month after they met in executive session for nearly 4 hours, just days before firing Jeff Long. So here is what the board chairman had to say following today's meeting.
Keep the faith that everybody understands the importance of it, and we all are Razorbacks, and we love the Hogs, and we love the university system and all of its components, and we're going to work very, very hard to get to where we all need to be.
8 of the 10 board members were in attendance. 1 other attended via teleconference. And it's interesting to note that today Arkansas hired Brett Bielema. It was 5 years ago.
Yurachek is from Richmond, Virginia. He also served as AD at Coastal Carolina and worked in athletics administration as well at Akron, Virginia, Western Carolina, Vandy, and Wake Forest. Yurachek quote, "The opportunity to serve the Razorback program is both humbling and exciting. There is so much already in place, and we will quickly build on that foundation to win championships," end quote. Chancellor Steinmetz, quote, "I am thrilled to welcome Hunter to the Razorback family. He possesses the experience, the management skills, and the passion to have an immediate impact on our university," end quote. As always, you can follow us for more details on our website.
Tom Murphy joins us, covers the University of Arkansas. Tom, always a pleasure. Thank you for the time. We've been watching this unfold. Malzahn obviously going or staying home. What's next? What's happening at Arkansas?
Right. Well, with the appointment of Hunter Yurachek as the athletic director yesterday, things are now moving apace, and I think we're pretty close to reaching a resolution to this search. Would not be surprised if it's within the next day.
Well, who's in consideration?
Well, I think after the Gus Bus trip was not taken, I think Chad Morris is one of the leading candidates. We know they've talked to him. I think the U of A folks reached out to Brent Venables, who has been in Arkansas the last couple of days as part of the Broyles Award ceremony, and even spoke about his representatives being contacted by the U of A. And I don't know if it was reciprocated. Brent Venables has been approached for big-time jobs, and what he's done at Clemson, he seems to be quite happy there. He's well paid, always a contender for the national championship. So I don't know if he's going to be like a finalist here. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think he would have been a guy who could have excited the Razorback fans from the Tommy Tuberville school of thinking that you need a good, strong defensive guy in the league right now, and then go out and hire your guru offensive coordinator. Also, we know that they've talked to Mike Norvell at Memphis. Don't know if he's in the finalists. I think he may have dropped off some. And then there's some other guys. I think Lane Kiffin came in the picture, and certainly there's a lot of issues that you have to, talk about when you bring up Lane Kiffin. His social media presence is something that I don't know if Arkansas folks would. There'd certainly be a segment of people that would think that's great, but also the administration, how that sits with them. So I think they're very close, and I think those guys' names are involved. And I saw you guys post Mike Leach up. Fascinating guy. Got to meet him at the Cotton Bowl a few years back when I covered Alabama. Plugging his system in at Arkansas and into this league, I think, would be fun to see. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, and listen, Chad Morris is a good coach, but if you're looking at Lane Kiffin versus Chad Morris, Lane Kiffin in 1 year has won a title and has really turned a program around. My question to you is, what has Chad Morris done?
Well, his record at SMU is 14-22. he inherited a team that was pretty much in shambles, and I think he had back-to-back classes of all Texas recruits, and might have been the only team in the nation that would say that about one state. And for Arkansas, there's a big appeal to getting back in Texas. When people talk about what happened to the Brett Bielema regime, the lack of bringing quality Texas commitments on board was a problem. So he would bring that, and he'd also bring some offensive excitement, because think about it. He learned and the offense under Gus Malzahn, came up here and saw his clinics, studied with him, and brought it to Clemson, and was basically the progenitor of what Clemson's offense has become. So I think he'd be a bit of a splash in terms of what your offensive style would be, and I think a lot of Razorback fans are yearning for that right now.
So if you had to sense a lean right now, would it be toward Chad Morris?
I think he'd be leader in the clubhouse, and I don't know if it's done, but I certainly think he's among the finalists.
And if not him, then who do you think would be the next choice?
I'd hesitate to say there. I still think the fact that Hunter Yurachek is not 24 hours here, and you've got to plug him into the process some. You know, Lane Kiffin was involved in his search for the replacement for Tom Herman at Houston when Major Applewhite was promoted. So they've had an association in the past. He could pass along his recommendation and vet him here at Arkansas as well. So perhaps he's still in the mix. And beyond that, you know, I think beyond that, you're talking about a stealth candidate like a Leach. I've heard Charlie Strong's name brought up, but I also think they're getting very close to the end game here.
Well, okay, you have a new athletic director who was hired yesterday. Obviously, Gus Malzahn was part of the mix last week. Who exactly was trying to hire Gus Malzahn?
Well, Julie Coleman-Peoples was leading the team, so to speak. She had some advisors. Someone from the UA Board of Trustees was an advisor, and they also had the search firm. But for me to say Julie Comer-Peoples is the person who pitched the idea to Jimmy Sexton or Gus Malzahn, I don't know that. It could have been the team, but she was leading the search at that point.
And you mentioned Kiffin. He interviewed at Houston last year. We don't know what happened. At one time, he looked like the leader. The athletic director there is now here. Do you think that is a strike against him?
Well, it depends on what led to. I think there were some even reports at the time that he was a leading candidate about to get the position and did not. So it's the same issue or the same red flag, and it may have been, you know, what happened in his final days at Alabama. So if that was an issue then it could still be an issue now.
Tom Murphy, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
You betcha, Paul. And I've been wanting to tell you, the claymation Paul Feinbaum, that's a riot. He's a cute little guy, and on those TV spots, I think it's worked out well for you.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that a lot.
You betcha.
Tom and I go way back covering college football in the newspapers, and for those of you watching on television, we're showing you the claymation who starred, by the way, in a spot. Did we get the arm back on, Randy? Yeah. Okay. There's the clay, and there's the old clay, which was a bobblehead. We are going to continue. Looks like Chad Morris, the leader in the clubhouse. Those are the words of Thomas Murphy in Arkansas.
That's a good question. My favorite is the Brent Venables answer. He was talking to Bo Mattingly, our favorite Arkansas radio host, and gets asked the question, you know, have you been contacted by Arkansas? He says, no, but my representatives have talked to them, which is the ultimate Brent Venables answer. So just because of that answer, I hope he gets the job, because I love it when people are honest. Like when Ken Niumatalolo went to interview at BYU last year, and instead of being all cloak and dagger, he said, yeah, I'm going to interview. I may take the job, I may not. I don't know why we can't all do this.
again, it seems college football, the coaching carousel continues to move forward. So let's start with that in the news that Chad Morris is potentially going to become the new head coach at Arkansas. Now, he's over at SMU right now, and Morris was Clemson's offensive coordinator from 2011 to 2014. This is according to Mark Schlabach and Adam Rittenberg that Morris could be the next coach. And let's go ahead and take a look at what he's done. The record doesn't exactly strike you as that great, though, right there, Marcus Spears. What do you think?
You look offensively, and there was some success in 2017, but now you go up against SEC West opponents. I'm thinking that'll be a lot more difficult to attain those type of numbers. But here's the thing. If he's going to implement some type of identity at Arkansas, whether it's an open, spread-out offense that he's accustomed to running, he's going to have to identify players that can fit in that system.
Well, they need a direction. They need to recruit to that direction. They got to pick a side or find that balance.
No question.
40 points a game and almost 500 yards per game in 2017. You saw that SMU was, historically bad. They got a little bit better and better each and every year. So let's start with there, gentlemen. For Chad Morris, what about his pedigree, what you've seen from him over at SMU leading, has brought you to the fact that you think he could be a decent fit at Arkansas?
No, look at the struggles that Arkansas has had the last couple of years has been identity and really consistency on the offensive side. And they've always kind of been that thick, bruising style of football, which one would say maybe is dated. Right now, I'm not saying it necessarily is, but you got to find a balance between when to go spread, when to open it up, and when to run the football. I think that's the reason they brought him here. Not only did he have success in changing the offense at SMU when he took over from one of the worst teams in the country and one of the worst offenses, and now they're a top 10 offense, averaging over 40 points, but he also did it at Clemson. So there's a track record of doing it at an elite program, and found Deshaun Watson, developed him, took them from one of the worst in the ACC to one of the best. So that's what they're latching on to. Right. But what else stands out or doesn't stand out?
When I look at when I see a coach that comes into this conference and thinks that he can run spread offense and win games, it blows my mind. Yeah. We're looking at two teams right now from the SEC that are running football teams at their core. When you think about Arkansas and the success that they were having in November's the past two previous seasons, it was because they were physical at the line of scrimmage. The physicality left the University of Arkansas in a way that was crazy.
But Spears, they did have success with Bobby Petrino and more of a kind of an offense back in the day. So potentially this could be part.
It depends on what they're trying to do, PB.
Correct.
It depends on if you want to win 8 games or you want to try to compete.
And that's what's going to be important, especially for this landscape where we want to win and we want to win now. That's not going to happen. If he's going to come in and do an up-tempo spread offense, the pieces aren't there to do that next year, and it's going to be a building process of recruiting and developing to fit that.
This league is still built on defense and the line of scrimmage. Ask Missouri.
Yeah, no doubt. Quickly, how important is it that he has those Texas ties when it comes to recruiting?
Well, it's very important, but it just got more difficult. You know who A&M just hired?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Tom Herman is at Texas. You got Houston that's been recruiting the Houston area for a while. He's going to have a lot of competition in that state, and I'm thinking about those guys in College Station that may begin to own the state of Texas here in the near future.
But at this time, I'd like to introduce the Chancellor of the University of Arkansas, Mr. Joseph Simons.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you all for coming out today, particularly when it's been a relatively short notice to get people out here. But I think it's been a really exciting week for us and for the entire state, as we've now hired a new athletic director, and we are very close to hiring a new head football coach as well. And I know one thing is that the interest and the passion exhibited throughout this process by our alumni, our friends, and all of the Razorback fans around the country and in the state has been simply amazing. We know the Razorbacks not only represent the University of Arkansas, we know the Razorbacks represent our entire state. So I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the newest members of our Razorback family, and I want to start especially with Mrs. Yurachek, who's here. Welcome. Jennifer, you're going to love it here. I can promise you that, and I know that from firsthand experience. Sandy and I came here just 2 years ago and have found Fayetteville and the whole state of Arkansas an amazing, quite amazing place to be. And before I introduce our new Vice Chancellor and Director of Athletics, I'd like to thank all who provided input during the search process, including most notably the advisory committee we assembled to help prioritize the characteristics we found to be most important for us in a new athletic director, and also to discuss the candidates that might be the best fit for us. And that group included Ben Heineman, Bill Montgomery, Rick Massey, Stacy Lewis, Peter McKeith, Lance Harder, and Gerald Jordan. And I also want to take at this time for a special thank you to Julie Cromer-Peoples for stepping up during this very challenging time as our interim director of athletics. And we all owe Julie a great debt of gratitude. She's done a marvelous job in this role over the past couple of weeks. So thank you, Julie. And ultimately, we found an extraordinary candidate who matched what we wanted in an AD. First of all, he has previous experience leading 2 collegiate athletic programs and has success doing so. He cares about the success of student athletes in every phase of their lives, not only on the court and in the field, but also as they relate to the community and in their studies. He has a proven track record of making smart coaching hires and maintaining those all-important relationships with those coaches. He's someone that others across the nation point to as one of the best, a true leader with a vision for the future. And most importantly, and this was personally important to me, he understands what an amazing situation we have here in Arkansas, what the Razorbacks mean to our state, and the opportunity there is here to take this program to even greater and new heights. We found that guy. In fact, it's also the fact that being a former FCS Athletic Director of the Year didn't hurt his chances here either. So I'm thrilled now to officially introduce our next Razorback Athletics Director, Hunter Yurachek.
Well, thank you. It is an honor and a privilege to be sitting here today as the new Vice Chancellor and Director of Athletics at the University of Arkansas. I just had a brief meeting with the entire athletic department staff. They taught me how to call the Hogs, is that correct? At the end of that meeting, and I am so excited to get started here and get my feet on the ground and get rolling as a Director of Athletics. A few thank yous. I want to thank Chancellor Steinmetz for this opportunity, for having the faith and the belief and the confidence in Hunter Yurachek as the next leader of this athletic department in a very critical time for the University of Arkansas. I want to also thank members of the Chancellor's Advisory Committee for this search, and the Arkansas System Board of Regents for also having the confidence in the recommendation of Chancellor Steinmetz for me to be the leader of this athletic program. I would be remiss if I didn't turn real quickly and say thank you to a number of folks at the University of Houston. First and foremost, our University President, Dr. Renu Couture, and the Chairman of our Board of Regents, Mr. Tillman Fertitta, who gave me an unbelievable opportunity to be the Director of Athletics at the University of Houston 3 years ago. And without that opportunity and the success we had, I would not be sitting here today. I also recognize that we did not have the success at the University of Houston without an unbelievable group of people, our coaches, our administrative staff, our support staff, and our university faculty. And I want to thank the entire University of Houston community for how they worked under my leadership and the great accomplishments that we had while I was there. I'd also like to thank the number of friends across the country that in the last 48 hours have reached out to Jennifer and myself with well wishes, and also to tell us the wonderful place that is Fayetteville, Arkansas, and the University of Arkansas, and made it so easy for me to sell this to Jennifer and sell this to my children, as well as a great place to move our family. A little about me real quickly. You can put me in a nutshell with 3 passions in my life: my faith, my family, and college athletics. I've been blessed with 3 wonderful boys, and I hate that they cannot be here today. Ryan, my oldest son, is a senior student athlete, tight end at Marshall University. He's in final exams and preparing for the New Mexico Bowl next week. Our middle son, Jake, is also in the middle of high school final exams, and he's got a very important banquet to attend tonight. And then our 13-year-old, our new teenager, who's getting a little bit of an attitude with Dad now, but he's got a very important junior high basketball game tonight, correct? And then I'm not here today without the support of my lovely wife, Jennifer. Jennifer, will you please stand up? She's never complained about a move. She's taken every home that we've purchased and every house we've purchased and made it a home, and she has done an amazing job raising our boys when I couldn't be there because of the taxing nature of this profession sometimes. As I mentioned, it's an honor to be in this position to serve as the Vice Chancellor and Director of Athletics, and to embrace the history, the heritage, and tradition of Razorback athletics that includes countless conference championships, national championships, bowl games, Final Four appearances, Olympic medalist student athletes, and incredible leaders such as Frank Broyles. This is truly a special, special place. I think most of you are aware by now that I am not from Arkansas, and I have very few ties to the state. But I will tell you, I am a quick study. Right now, I have very few answers and so many questions. I'm going to ask those questions to a number of people and listen intently and gain a complete understanding of the culture here at the University of Arkansas and across this great state. My life, both professional and personal, will quickly adapt to this culture. I promise you, each and every one of you across this state, that my family and I are going to become engrossed in this community, in this state, and become a part of its fabric. I know I will never be a true Arkansian, but my goal is that I will earn the right to be an honorary member someday soon. I'm a true believer that the Department of Athletics is indeed a front porch at most major universities. Being the front porch does not mean it's the most important room in the house, but it is indeed the most visible room of the house. It provides a first impression. It provides a great sense of pride for all its constituents. The Razorback athletic program, the front porch of the University of Arkansas, will be a sense of pride for this community and for this state. And will do so through the success of our student athletes. I truly believe it is my role as a director of athletics to work with our coaches, to work with our administrators, to work with our support staff and our faculty to create opportunities for each and every one of our student athletes to have success academically, which means earning a degree from the University of Arkansas, athletically, which means competing and winning conference and national championships in their personal development so that they leave the University of Arkansas ready to conquer the world. When our student athletes at the University of Arkansas have success academically, athletically, and in their personal development, our coaches will have success, our department will have success, the university will experience success, and its front porch will indeed be a great sense of pride across the state of Arkansas. A vision not to be good, but rather to be the best is obtainable here at the University of Arkansas. Razorback fans, it's time for us to gather our fellow alums, our neighbors, our business associates, and our friends from across the state and step up onto the front porch at the University of Arkansas. I promise you, it's a big front porch. There's room for everybody. I also promise you that the journey we're about to embark on together as a Razorback family will be like no other journey you've experienced before. Yes, like any tight-knit family, there'll be times when we disagree and just don't see eye to eye. But like any great family, we'll put our differences aside and forge ahead together as Razorbacks with one common goal in mind, and that's the success of our student athletes. An era of unprecedented success is about to kick off at the University of Arkansas, and we need to come together now more than ever. Dr. Steinmetz, once again, thank you for this opportunity. I embrace this challenge and promise you that the best days lie ahead of us. Go Hogs. Congratulations.
All right, thank you. We will now take some questions. Again, we ask you to raise your hand. Please give your name and affiliation, and we'll start here with Tom Murphy. Tom.
Hi, Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette for Hunter, please. I understand you have a pretty famous 100-day plan. I'd like to know if you presented something to the chancellor in your interview process. And secondly, what role did you play in the hiring of the new football coach, if you could tell us, please?
Sure. Tom, thank you for the question. And to address your first one, I do have a 100-day plan, and I did present that to the Chancellor during the course of our time together. That 100-day plan, it really engages me in the university community, the Fayetteville and surrounding community, and across this state during my first 100 days. My involvement in the search process for the football coach has really been being a resource to Julie as she led this search. It's been 36 hours since I was officially hired as a director of athletics. It's hard for me to jump headfirst into a search. And as the Chancellor mentioned, Julie has done an unbelievable job with this search process. And really what I became for her was a resource during the last 36 hours.
Okay, we'll go over here on our left to Bob Holt. Bob?
Thanks. Hey, Bob Holt, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. For both of y'all, was the interview on Saturday? And I understand Stacey Lewis was there. Was it kind of weird because your basketball team's playing his basketball team and your basketball team beat his basketball team pretty soundly? And how did that impact things?
So I'll take that first. When I called Hunter to let him know that he was my choice, the first thing he asked me is the job still available since they beat us. So I told him yes. The answer was it turned out that I had been on my schedule to be in Houston for that game, and it's been on my schedule for the last couple of months. We did a service project as the Alumni Association group from Houston organized. Then we had a very big gathering, and then the game. So I was able to do an interview that morning with Hunter when I was in Houston. It worked out perfectly. And yes, Stacey Lewis, who's also from Houston, was with me. So it worked out. The timing was great for that to come together.
And Tom, I just talked to Coach Anderson. I said I went from Saturday, that being a great win, to today, that being a bad loss.
All right, Anna Kay, if we can get one here to the second row. Kurt in the middle first. Kurt Voigt.
Hey, Hunter, Kurt Voigt, Associated Press. Two quick questions. The first is, I know you said you're going to kind of ease your way into things as far as making decisions, but during the process or immediately after being hired, were you given a mandate for how to approach or handle games, the future of games post-2018 in Little Rock? And then secondly, on a big picture, how do you feel like Arkansas football fits in the SEC?
I'm going to let the Chancellor answer the question about Little Rock.
Yes, I'll just start there. We have not had a conversation. I've been engaged in conversation for probably 6 to 8 months about the issue, and have just recently met with some folks from Little Rock to talk about what we're doing. So we're still working through that. Hunter and I have not had the opportunity to sit down and go through the whole situation with the entire briefing. So we haven't done that yet.
And the second half of your question, I'm sorry. Fits very well. We're going to hire, and we're in the process of hiring the right football coach, and I think you're going to see great things for our football program. But, the SEC West is the toughest division in college football, bar none. And it's very important that we get the coaching search right and hire the right person to lead our football program into the future, and I think we are on the brink of doing that, and Arkansas fits very well in the Southeastern Conference.
Okay, we'll go back over here on the left. Grant, you have a question? All right, Trey, go ahead, Grant.
Grant Hall, 99.5 Hog Radio. Could Chancellor, you talk a little bit more about Stacey Lewis's input and where you first got the idea that this man is a great athletic director?
Yeah, so just to back up about the process and just say a few words about it, is this process began a few weeks back by myself talking to many people around the country, other ADs, other presidents, other sports consultants, et cetera, of who should be on the top list. And from that, I gathered a list of about 50 individuals to start to take a look and to vet. Hunter's name came up probably more frequently than any other name for that list at that time. I formed the search committee at that time, and it turned out that Stacey, we were looking for former athletes to be on that, as well as that committee was composed of some campus input from Dean McKeith. We had Gerald Jordan to represent the students' interest on it, some people from the business community, et cetera. So it was wide-based to take a look at and help vet the list that I'd come up with by looking at all these other sources. So Hunter's name was actually on this list before the committee was even formed. And then it turned out that with Stacy being, first of all, in Houston, and second of all, having a spouse who led the golf program under Hunter, there was this other input then that was very valuable into vetting the candidate for the committee. And so she was very, very valuable in the end to help us to decide if Hunter was the right person. So I'm really indebted to Stacy for that. She stepped up and did a fantastic job for us.
Okay, we'll go over here to our right. Nate.
Nate Allen, Sports Service. Chancellor, I was wondering if Jeff Long had any input or advice into this search, and also for Hunter, did you talk to Jeff about this job and get any input from him?
So the answer is no. I didn't consult with Jeff for names for this search.
And no, I did not reach out to Jeff. I've got a number of other colleagues across the country that have a better relationship with Jeff, and were able to fill me in here at what the happenings at the University of Arkansas, but Jeff and I have not spoken.
We'll go down here on our left. Trey?
Yes, Trey Biddy with hogsports.com. I was just curious what your level of familiarity with Arkansas is. Have you been to Fayetteville before? And also just a little background. Your bio says you're from Richmond. Is that where you were raised and your extended family, or are you from somewhere else? Or
no. No, this is my first trip to Fayetteville, Arkansas. I've been to Harding University. I believe that's correct. One time in a visit to Arkansas, but this is my second trip to Arkansas. I was born in Richmond, Virginia. My dad was transferred to Charlotte, North Carolina in the 8th grade. The majority of my family lives in the Charlotte area, and Jennifer's family lives in Brevard and Greensboro, North Carolina. So this business has taken me all over the country. We have gone from Wake Forest to Vanderbilt to Akron, Ohio, to coastal Carolina, on the coast of Myrtle Beach to Houston, Texas. And one of the things Jennifer and I have really prided ourselves on is really getting engrossed in whatever community we were a part of. If it was at the beach, we were out, we had jet skis living on the water, and now we're in Houston, Texas, and I own a good pair of boots and a hat, and I go to the rodeo. And so, we feel like we will do the same thing here in Arkansas, and Jennifer and I will become, like I said earlier, part of the fabric of this community.
All right, we'll go over here to the right. Bo?
In the middle here. Hunter, welcome to Arkansas.
Thank you.
Bo Mattingly from Sports Talk. What is your sense coming into the job, beyond just generally what an athletic director would do? What is your sense on what Arkansas needs right now?
Well, there's been a great foundation set here at Arkansas, great facilities from what the people I have talked to, great people within the athletic program, great coaches, great support from a budgetary standpoint from our donors and constituents. And really what we need is a football program that competes for championships in the Southeastern Conference. That's what drives the train. It really does. What drives your revenue. That's what creates that brand perception that you need. We have other very, very competitive, nationally competitive sports here at the University of Arkansas, but for our program, entire athletic program to be successful year in and year out, we need our football program to be successful year in and year out, not only in the Southeastern Conference, but nationally.
Okay, we'll go here in the second row. Tom?
Yep, Tom Murphy, Chancellor Steinmetz. You mentioned a pool of about 50 names that you started with. Could you tell us how many the firm vetted for you guys, and what maybe a list of finalists, and how many you talked to, you interviewed?
The initial 50 list did not come from the search firm. It came from hard work done by a lot of people that I know and that worked on, some from the advisory committee once we had it. So I'd say the process was, and I want to stay in very general terms. I will not talk about individual candidates that were in the pool, but it was a process of going from that 50 to perhaps 20 or so in the discussions with the committee where there was a fit, and some of them eliminated because it was very likely they weren't going to leave the places that they were at. From all kinds of conferences, all kinds of, from Power 5 sitting supporting ADs to other individuals. And then from that, after committee discussion about the pluses and minuses of that larger list, cut the list down to what is about 7, I believe, we ended up with. And then from that, there emerged, this is when the search firm came in, because I needed the search firm to make the contacts with the list of finalists, and also asked them, by the way, at the time if they had other names. And it turns out the names that they had, we had already had in the process. But they were very helpful at that point, moving us forward with making the contacts and also doing the background checks and the vetting that's necessary that we're not, we can't do. And so from that, they made contact with, I believe, 7 or 8. I think it was 7 or 8. And 3 were not interested, meaning they were in positions that they didn't want to move from, and they didn't want to continue on. That left 5. I telephoned the 5 and had extensive conversations with those 5, and then reduced that to 4, and then went and personally visited those 4. And I consider that those four to be like the final list that we had. And in those interviews, I took members of the advisory committee with me to help with that process. And that's when, for example, Stacey Lewis was the one that was in on Hunter's interview. And then from that, I came up with the final choice.
Okay, we'll go back here to Mitch on the left side.
Hi, Hunter. Mitch Roberts with 4029 Sports. Given you mentioned driving the train, and football is what does that here and at Houston, knowing that, how comfortable are you coming in and not having that much of a hand in who the football coach is going to be, given how important it is?
I think you'll find out in the very near future. I am very comfortable. Very comfortable. We're heading in the right direction as a football program.
Okay, we'll go stay on the same side. Bob?
Hunter, could you talk maybe some specifics about your 100-day plan? What things do you think need to happen in your first three months and 10 days, I guess, on the job? And when you went to Harding, where were you working then? You remember what year it was, and what was the circumstance?
I was a member of I'll answer the last question first. When I went to Harding, I was just a member of an NCAA Sportsmanship and Ethical Conduct Committee, and I was presenting an award to a student athlete on their campus. And so I was part of an award ceremony they were having on their campus, serving on an NCAA committee. As far as the 100-day plan goes, it really engages me into the university community, the Fayetteville community, the region, and the state. Me getting around, asking questions of hundreds of people, listening intentionally and learning about the culture here at this university, within our athletic program, within this community, and within the state. And that's really, really important. I mentioned I'm not from the state of Arkansas. I have very few ties to the state of Arkansas. I have to spend that first 100 days really listening and learning before I develop any other plans for our athletic program.
Okay, we have time for 3 more. We'll start with Josh here on the... Wow.
Josh Bertuccini, 92 on the ticket. This one would be for both you gentlemen, maybe you first, Chancellor. The exciting stadium renovation right now, a lot of possibilities, including things that can be done on game day. Chancellor, how much did Juracek's experience with stadium renovations and refurbishings factor into this? And then maybe any possibilities out of you, Mr. Juracek?
Josh, great question, because one of the facilities is a big issue in being competitive in having the best facilities. And in Hunter's background, both at Coastal Carolina as well as Houston, there's great progress have been made in two areas. One, fundraising for to pay for the improvements in the facilities, and second of all, getting the facility improvements done. And I think the number might be something like $250 million at Houston or something like that. That's current, if I remember the number right. That's currently underway in renovation. So keeping updated is extremely important, particularly in the SEC, because it is a very, very competitive conference, not only in competition, but also in the facilities that are available. So having somebody that has managed this somewhere very, very successfully was a very big priority as well. So thanks.
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sure. Obviously, I'm very excited to be a part of the finishing of the end zone project. I mean, that's a facility that's been designed, and the money has been set aside within the athletic department budget to pay for the debt service on that building. But I think my experience in being a part of $230 million is the exact number of facility, either new projects or enhancements at the University of Houston over the past 4 years of my time there. That included a $125 million football stadium, a $25 million basketball practice facility, a $20 million end zone football practice facility, and currently we're undergoing a $60 million renovation to the basketball facility there at the University of Houston. So, I've walked through a lot of facilities under construction. I've been a part of getting those to the finish line, and so I look forward to touring that facility and looking at the plans and seeing if there's any way I can, maybe put a touch or two on there from some of the experience I have with the facilities at Houston and at Coastal Carolina University.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll head over to the middle.
Hamed Ahmed, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. For the Chancellor, what feedback during the search did you get from the Board of Trustees? How would you compare and contrast that with the role of the Search Advisory Committee? And then for both gentlemen, the tax bill proposal at the federal level, there's been discussion about how that might influence giving to athletics. Do you have any thoughts about that legislation and how that might affect Razorback athletics?
It's to answer the first part about the involvement of the Board of Trustees. So, well, first of all, Ben Heineman was one of the committee members, but he didn't serve as a role as a representative of the board, but more or less somebody that has a passion for Razorback athletics and a passion for the university. So he was invaluable. There were no updates to the board in any formal sense during the process until I was ready for the selection itself. And as you know, the board went into executive session on Thursday with a number of matters, and then called me for they wanted an update at that point of the two searches. But what I was able to do is, it was that morning I'd had the conversation with Hunter at 8 o'clock, said you're the guy, and happily was able to present that to the board then during that call, with all the logic and the reasoning behind why Hunter was the right person, and at the same time was able to talk about the process and how we arrived at that conclusion. And with the tax bill, I have been in communication with our state delegation, both the senators and state representatives, about the impact that has on the university in general. And it's not the only part of the tax bill, by the way. I've been in communication with them about particularly about the tax that's being included in there on fee waivers for graduate students, which I think will devastate graduate programs across the country. So I think left in, it of course has a negative effect on both of those issues. So from our preference, we'd certainly like to see those removed or out of the final bill that's passed.
All right, we'll take one final question over here. Paul
Gatling with the Northwest Arkansas Business Journal. Hunter, you graduated college in 1990, and then you've pretty much spent your entire adult life working in college athletics, college administration. So you remember a time when there was no TV revenue, no TV contracts, no football coaches making $75 million guaranteed for 10 years. And we'll see it more every year, but really this year the number of buyouts and guaranteed money and the multi-million-dollar contracts are becoming more and more prevalent. So my question to you is just kind of what your opinion is on where you see the college athletics universe being 20 years from now. Is this a sustainable path that we're on?
Absolutely not. I don't think at any level. I mean, I have been at Coastal Carolina at the FCS level, and then recently at the University of Houston. We had a $30 and $45 million budget, respectively, at those two institutions, and they're competing at the same level now with all these teams in the SEC. I spent some time in the SEC back in 1998, 99, 2000 at Vanderbilt. It is a totally different SEC than it was back then, and we've got to get a handle on coaches' contracts and the buyouts. And I'm adamant. The majority, to me, losing football games is being terminated with cause. And the protection sometimes that coaches are provided within their contracts, to me, is ludicrous. And, I want to be a leader in this industry and how we write our coaches' contracts moving forward so that there's not 100% guaranteed protection for their contracts. Yes, coaches need some protection. They're moving their families to a community. Especially the expectations are so incredibly high, especially in this conference in the Power 5, that coaches deserve some protection. But for someone likes of Kevin Sumlin to get paid 100% of his contract, $10 million, I think that was a mistake. I'm not at Texas A&M, but and I know they're in our conference and we compete with them, and they'll probably hold that against me for telling them, but that's a mistake in our industry. And it's not a sustainable model moving forward. You just look at the growth in the past 20 years, think 20 years from now.
And speaking of football, news coming in during the course of that press conference that ESPN is reporting, Chris Lowe is reporting that Chad Morris from SMU has completed a deal to become the next head coach at the University of Arkansas, and an announcement is expected tomorrow. Your thoughts as that came out, that news literally came out during the press conference?
Well, again, that's Chris Lowe saying that. That's not us. We'll see if that happens. You would think it would be accurate, but as we've learned, it might not be. I again will say what I said earlier about this athletic director search, and then what the new athletics director at Arkansas just said. You can talk about a lot of things. We've heard a lot of hype over the last 24 hours about Chad Morris.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's coming from the media. He was 36-0 at Lake Travis High School. Then he goes to Tulsa and helps Tulsa. And then he goes to Clemson and saves Dabo Swinney's job. These are all things that people are saying. But he's never been in Arkansas if this turns out to be the hire. And so he should be judged on what he does at Arkansas. And all of this hype is interesting, but nothing has happened here with whoever the head coach is going to be.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that head coach should be judged on what he does.
Yeah, we do know Chad Morris is a National Offensive Coordinator of the Year from back in 2011, also a National Assistant Football Coach of the Year from 2013, as voted by the AFCA.
Welcome into Arkansas Today. I am Aaron Nolan. You see it on the screen. Breaking news. This coming out of ESPN. A new head hog coming to Arkansas. Chad Morris leaving SMU to be the head football coach for the Arkansas Razorbacks. So let's go straight to Fayetteville in the Pig Trail Nation's Drew Amon. Drew, good afternoon. One that's shaping up to be quite busy for you.
Yeah, to say the least, Aaron. Thanks very much. And a report from ESPN's Adam Rittenberg and Chris Lowe. SMU head coach Chad Morris will make his way to Fayetteville as the replacement for Brett Bielema, who was fired November 24th. The deal has been finalized with Morris becoming the 33rd head hog in Arkansas football history. Under Morris, the past 3 years, the SMU Mustangs made steady improvement, going 2-10 in the first season, 5-7 the next, and 7-5 this season, including a trip to the Frisco Bowl. So what is Arkansas getting? This is someone who coached the 8th highest scoring offense in the nation this year. ESPN's report also saying Morris will make an annual salary in the range of $4 million. Hunter Yurachek's response to Chad Morris after this morning's press conference.
You guys just hold on to your hats. So we've gotten it right, and when the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and this comes out officially, you're going to be really excited.
So that made you okay with it, kind of knowing where they were?
Absolutely. I talked to Julie for the first time Monday afternoon after the chancellor made this official, and she brought me up to date on the search and where the candidate pool that she had interviewed and been in front of, and kind of where this search was heading, and I was 100% confident in the direction of this search.
Is that someone you looked at before as a head football coach?
I will tell you, yes, that when Mac Rhodes and I were searching for football coaches, back in, trying to think, 2014, when we hired Coach Herman, we did have a large candidate pool, and Chad Morris, who's now the head coach at SMU, was one of those candidates. And we may have hired him at the University of Houston if SMU wasn't ahead the search. At that time, June Jones got let go in the middle of the season, if you may remember, and so they were able to gobble him up before we had the chance to do so at the University of Houston. Now, obviously, it worked out very well for us at the University of Houston. Tom Herman did an amazing job, came in there and led us to the Peach Bowl and 13-1, and now is at the University of Texas. So.
Chad's told his team he's no longer the head coach at SMU.
He has?
Yes.
Where's he going?
He's apparently here.
How much interaction, you mentioned that previous interaction with him, but how much interaction have you maybe had with him the last 24, 36 months?
Enough interaction.
Yep, we will follow the Chad Morris hiring. There's also a reasonable chance something could pop today from the University of Tennessee. But let's start the show like we normally do. And Arkansas has found its man. He is Chad Morris from SMU, former Clemson offensive coordinator, A&M man. We'll try to get some reaction from Arkansas fans on notable college coaches who were successful high school coaches. Remember Hugh Freeze. Chad Morris has done well, and of course Gus Malzahn was at Springdale High School right outside of Fayetteville. Jeremy Pruitt was a high school coach. He was not a head coach. He started in, I believe, 2004 under Rush Probst at the famous Hoover High School outside of Birmingham. He ultimately became the defensive coordinator before going to work in 2007 at the University of Alabama. Whether he very well may be the next head coach at Tennessee. Certainly he is a serious contender as Philip Fulmer narrows the field and is close to a decision, guys.
Yeah, Paul, let's talk about Chad Morris for a second. He's coming from SMU. Mm-hmm. And if you're an Arkansas fan, would this hire inspire you or excite you?
It does. It's kind of like, okay, let's see what he can do. You know, it's not that big name like Bielema was that got everybody excited, only to be a little let down by the end result. So you're looking, hey, he came to SMU, 2 wins, 5 wins, 7 wins, keep improving, and that's kind of what you want to see, right? I mean, he built SMU back up from what June Jones left. So it's kind of like, okay, let's wait and see. You know, can his offense work here, and is that what we're going to do? And plus, he can recruit Texas. So
well, hold on a second. I mean, he's got a background in Texas. Whether you can recruit Texas at Arkansas successfully remains to be seen.
Yeah, well, the fact that he has connections
in the high schools
from the last couple of years at SMU, that's important. He's made those relationships already.
But don't forget, I mean, Texas has become a more difficult state right now with Tom Herman and now Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Very true.
But the thing about Texas is, Paul, every single program in that state has been average. I mean, no one has really decided to step up and say, this is going to be our state.
Right.
So it's kind of a free-for-all right now. Maybe Morris could make some headway.
Now, listen, I don't know much about him other than what I'm told, but I think we better be careful before we just automatically assume he's going to go in there and beat Texas and Texas A&M and TCU.
Next, going on to Chad Morris, stock up.
Yeah,
I'm buying. This is the new Arkansas coach. You have to buy.
I'm buying some preferred shares of Chad Morris.
His stock's up. I'll buy just because of that relationship he has with Texas high school coaches. I think that's a big deal.
Over and a half, 7.5 wins. Over, under.
Under.
Okay.
So we know what's happening in Fayetteville as far as Chad Morris. He'll be introduced tomorrow. He was officially announced today. Let's get some reaction on how it's playing. Former captain, former player, now media member David Basil joins us from Arkansas. David, it's been a pleasure. It's a pleasure talking to you. So give us the lay of the land. This coaching search has taken a few interesting steps. AD finally hired, now a head coach. All seems right in your state, right?
Well, Paul, it's been somewhat of a crazy ride. We don't top Tennessee, of course, what Tennessee has gone through. But you think about it, 3 or 4 weeks ago, you have Jeff Long as AD and Brett Bielema as your coach. Both of them are gone within a week of each other. And then you're not really sure who's running the coach's search. And then you heard the talk of maybe Arkansas trying to go back and find somebody that's got some kind of Arkansas connection for your new AD. And so a lot of rumors, maybe you go with the next player, ex-coach, or what Tennessee has done with Phil Fulmer, and you get a guy named Yurachek. Just what you think when you think of Arkansas, a guy with the last name Yurachek. But that's okay. It's one of those things, Paul. it's nice to have those ideals. To have, hey, it'd be nice for somebody to know what a hog call is and this and that. But the bottom line, you just want somebody that can come in there and can connect with your fans, your fan base, your donors. Don't know much about Yurachek. Spent time at Coastal Carolina, at Houston. We'll give him a shot. So obviously the Board of Trustees had some play in this. Interim athletic director Julie Peoples, was involved, as well as the president of the university. So the chancellor of the university. So the AD search, Paul, I don't think right now people are as concerned about that as they are with the head coaching position. I think Chad Morris is a guy that a lot of people don't know, Paul. I think if you polled the Razorback football fans, I think half would say really good hire, and half would say we don't know who he is. The ironic thing is that a lot of fans were very disappointed Sunday when Gus Malzahn decided to stay at Auburn. I don't think people have realized the connection between Gus Malzahn and Chad Morris. It's a great story. I don't know if you shared it with your
No,
your
go right
audience
ahead.
yet, but yeah, basically what happened when Chad Morris was a high school coach in Texas. He graduates from Texas A&M with a math major of all things, and goes into high school coaching and is struggling. I think at Stephenville, Texas. He hops on the plane with his coaching staff. He was running the old traditional, smash mouth football offense, and goes and watches a high school coach in Little Rock, Arkansas, named Gus Malzahn, who's written a book about, the up-tempo offense. So he goes there, and they lose that game. Springdale High School loses that game, but he goes up to Gus after the game, introduces himself, said, "I'd like to learn about your offense." And Gus is sort of protective, and he said, sure, sort of, blows it off and said, maybe we can visit in January. Well, he goes back to Texas, Chad Morris does, and turns around and gets back on a plane a week later. Comes back to Gus and says, "I'm serious. I want to meet with you right now." So Gus obviously realized he was serious about him, and so Gus shared with him his offense and goes back and ends up, winning 2 state championships in Texas, and then Gus ends up hiring him to be with him at Tulsa under Graham, and the rest is history. He ends up going to Clemson after that. He was almost a Broyles Award finalist for with us, when he was at Clemson, and then he goes to SMU. And so really, Gus and him both have that same trajectory. They came out of high school ranks, and he calls himself just a high school coach. And I think, Paul, for Razorback fans who wanted somebody with an Arkansas connection or whatever, both for AD or maybe coach, I do think the one thing he brings to the table, this guy is well known in Texas, and that's been the complaint the last 5 years, is that, as you know, historically, Arkansas is better when you have more better Texas players. Chad Morris is 49 years old, Paul. That's old enough for him to remember the Southwest Conference. He knows how important Texas is to the state of Arkansas in terms of recruiting. He knows the history of Frank Broyles. So, plus, he'll score some points. Now, here's the one thing. He's going to score some points. He's going to have a very creative offense. But all you got to do is look at the stat, and you see in the SEC West, you got 4 out of the 7 are top 25 defenses. So his most important thing he's going to do, he better bring in a great defensive coordinator to be competitive in this league. You can try to outscore everybody like Petrino did. He had some success there, but I still think the best ingredient is to have a really strong defense too.
David, let me back up for 1 second. We know Gus Malzahn is from that area. We know his affinity for that state. Why didn't he take that job?
I think, to be honest with you, I think he probably evaluated. I don't think he probably enjoyed what happened this year early on after the LSU game. I was driving back from covering the Razorbacks against Alabama, came back that morning. I think it was after the LSU loss, and I'm telling you, it was brutal on radio Sunday morning. I mean, they were ready to run him out of town. And I think, though, at the end, Paul, I think he felt he had a better chance to win championships at Auburn. He got the deal he wanted from Sexton out of Auburn, and I just felt like, I can win faster. I got a good team coming back. I have a better chance to be successful, and that's what it boiled down to.
So let's close by talking about the reaction. You mentioned it was, I wouldn't say mixed, but certainly a lot of people just don't know much about Chad Morris. He'll be introduced tomorrow. Certainly that will help his cause, I imagine. But was there anyone else other than Malzahn that fans wanted to see in that position?
Well, you had the normal cast of characters. You heard Kiffin's name mentioned. You heard Leach's name mentioned. And those, to me, Paul, I just don't know if they were good fits for the fan base at Arkansas. We had Brent Venables in Arkansas yesterday for the Broyles Award, and when I introduced him at the Monday night dinner, not the ceremony, the fans there, the 100 that we had, started giving a hog call. So I think he would have been a popular choice. I mean, his resume is impeccable. Just like I'm sure, Tennessee is looking at Jeremy Pruitt for the same reason. So I think that was a name that certainly could have been there. And, of course, Gus was there. But, again, I think the one difference between Chad Morris, Paul, and Gus Malzahn, Gus is a little bit more reserved. I think Chad Morris is a little bit more gregarious, outspoken. I think he'll come in here. He'll win the press conference. And I think the bottom line, though, you got to win on the field. And I think he'll put an exciting product offensively. I think the key is, I think what will really make a difference is the defensive coordinator hire. And that's why I think some fans are really liking the thought of maybe having Brent Venables come to Arkansas.
Is that realistic to take him out of where he is right now, which is a pretty good place?
Oh, no, I'm talking about as a head coach.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
No, I will say
who is on the list of people that you would think could be the defensive coordinator?
Well, I have no idea, Paul. Here's the deal. There's a lot of rumor because Chad Morris is good buddies with Brent Venables. My understanding is Chad Morris was very helpful in getting Brent from Oklahoma to Clemson. I think he actually sold his house to Brent Venables when Chad left. So they have a really close bond, I think, between the two. I just can't see him leaving Clemson, which is an unbelievable situation to go and fight your way out of a really tough situation currently in Fayetteville, even though they're buddies. But who knows? If there's enough money thrown his way, he might. I just would be surprised if that were to happen.
David, many thanks. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Paul.
We'll watch the press conference tomorrow. It is scheduled at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 in Arkansas. I thought that was an interesting response. And again, David is a former captain of the Arkansas team, very respected in the media. I think he said the right things, but there is a lot of unknown and uncertainty about exactly who Chad Morris is. That may be no longer the case after tomorrow when he is introduced. So you have 3 Arkansas coaches now who have had a sub-500 record. Chad Morris, introduced tomorrow. Houston Nutt had a terrible record, but did quite well. 2 SEC championship game appearances, a lot of bowl wins. And Ken Hatfield, who was just stunningly good at Arkansas, he didn't do much before he got there either. By the way, I don't think those, considering we're going back 25, 30 years, I don't think references like that make a whole lot of difference in trying to identify a coach. I will say this, though, guys, and I was listening very closely to Basil, but and I'm not putting words in his mouth. He just got through talking to us. But I didn't hear him swinging the bat saying home run hire, did you?
No. And I think the comment that was made in the control room was, you've made an interesting hire, maybe not a home run hire, when you say something like, we'll see how he can do.
Yeah, we're excited. We'll see how he can do.
Wow.
That's not a ringing
time will
endorsement.
tell. I was really surprised by that because Basil is usually, I mean, he was also somewhat less than effusive in the praise of the athletic director. We didn't know who this guy was.
Well, plus, that, and he's going to try to outscore people. He's got to bring a defense in. He's going to have to put up against,
Sounds like
Auburn.
Venables might have been a bigger hire in terms of the Vox Populi.
Oh, definitely would have been a better hire in terms of name branding.
Sure.
And speaking of branding, Arkansas football, Paul, when Bielema got there, the brand was big meat eaters up front, and let's run the football down your throat. They made a hire. They brought Enos in, and he threw the ball a lot with the Allen brothers. And I think now Brett Bielema leaving Fayetteville has left that program in a really tough spot. Like, what is Arkansas football right now? What is that program's identity? I don't know. I think that's a major problem when it comes to recruiting and going out on the trail and trying to get kids to come play for that school.
How do you all of a sudden go in and say, okay, we're going to throw it around, we're going to be in the SEC? Are they bringing like that Texas high school brand of football into Arkansas?
That's got to be Chad Morris's number one job. Establish who we are.
Right.
What type of football program is this? What type of offense will they run? Because right now I think we have no idea.
TC in Ohio. You are on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment. I'm like you. I don't see that Chad Morris hire being, 14-22. You would think you would want somebody that was. But I saw the graphic you put up of Houston Nutt and the Hatfield coach that they were both under 500 when they started there and left better, at Arkansas.
Yeah, listen. I don't want to prejudge anyone. I don't even know Chad Morris, but I am not hearing an overwhelming degree of enthusiasm from Arkansas fans. Maybe it's just because they are so beaten down that it's hard to get excited. Certainly.
They don't want to be paying another big buyout for another coach in a couple.
No, listen. I buy all the explanations and reasons. I have some friends in the industry who are underwhelmed by the choice. I have some friends who think it's a good choice. It's a mixed bag, but tomorrow, I think tomorrow is his day, and most people that know Chad Morris believe that he will put on a very positive and compelling presentation, and I think
Chad Morris officially named new head coach Wednesday, signing him to a 3-year deal for Arkansas, or 6-year deal rather, worth $3.5 million annually. Spent 4 seasons as the OC at Clemson and last 3 as the head coach at SMU, where that team continues to get a little bit better. Let's get to know Mr. Morris. And well, Morris called the plays for Clemson's offense 4 years under Dabo Swinney, and he knows the Texas recruiting grounds well. He spent over 2 decades, or almost 2 decades rather, coaching high school football in the Lone Star State. So he was traveling in style, and I have to wonder, Coach Morris, what's this offense going to be like?
Well, we're going to be very explosive. This will be one of the most explosive offenses in all of college football. We're taking the model that we've been about, a 2-back run-oriented play-action shot football team, and you got to run the football. I firmly believe that, but you also got to be dynamic, you got to be explosive, and you got to think outside the box a little bit too. So we'll be creative. It'll be fun. There won't be a lot of people sitting down. We like to score, and we like to score fast.
All right, so we saw that. Then we see this, Jordan Rogers. What's this like when you're meeting your coach for the first time?
It's kind of like a first date. You're feeling each other out. You're looking, hey, what's this guy wearing? What's he saying? Am I vibing with it?
I don't know
it's exciting.
What you would know about first dates and all that stuff, right? All right, so let's talk about the first day for Arkansas players and Chad Morris, though. What are they getting out of this guy?
Well, I think you're getting, as he said, an offense that's going to check all those boxes. But
we're going to run the ball. We're going to pass the ball.
We're going to have some fun. We're going to do this. Not too far off of the Malzahn tree, though. As a high school coach back in 2003, actually took his entire staff up there to learn from another high school coach in Arkansas, in Gus Malzahn. So it's going to be explosive. You got a lot of tools. Really just losing your starting quarterback, but Cole Kelly's there, Chase Hayden, Devwall Whaley's going to be back. A lot of tools for him to utilize with this offense. And really, most importantly, the thing I like, he's got a track record of developing talent and developing offenses. Did it at Clemson and also did it at SMU.
When he was first there with the Mustangs, they were averaging 16 points a game. He went out, that team was averaging 40 points a game. But how quick, you've been there trying to install offenses on many different levels, how quick can an offense really take that next step?
It's not going to be overnight, that's for sure. When you're talking about an offense, you now have a quarterback that you're going to inherit in Cole Kelly. Not a ton of experience and a new system. So it's really tough as a young quarterback to implement a new system. I imagine it'll be a gradual curve of implementing the complexity that he'll want to from an offensive standpoint. But as I mentioned, a lot of guys coming back, the tools will be there. But Arkansas fans, don't think this is going to be an overnight flip the switch. Things are going to change. This is for the long haul. You got the guy and the right guy in to do it. It's going to take a bit, though.
Quickly, he's known for recruiting Texas. He did it well. How many years does it take to kind of get your quote-unquote guys into your system?
Well, there's pieces in place. This was a young team, so I like that. But it's going to take some time. Here's what I'm most interested about is the defensive side of the ball. This defense was in transition over the past 12 months from a 4-3 to a 3-4, really only losing Bijan Jackson, that nose guard. Are you going to take the 4-3 that you had at SMU and bring it here, or are you going to kind of pick up where this last step left off and transition to that 3-4? That'll be interesting. As much as offense is important in the SEC, you got to play defense as well. That's why 2 of those teams in the championship or in the playoff are defensive guys.
There's no doubt about it, and perhaps we'll get that answer when they have the press conference, which will be coming on Thursday right here on the SEC Network. That'll be at 11 a.m., so we'll hear a little bit more of that. And how about this tweet? How classy is Brett Bielema here? Hashtag WooPig, congrats Chad Morris and the opportunity for a very special place. That's a pretty class act right there.
Brett's a first-class guy.
Football
coach. Great day to be a Razorback. Are we excited about Razorback football? I think it'd be fair to say that. We're excited about Razorback football, aren't we? We certainly welcome those of you inside the beautiful Fowler Center. We welcome those of you watching and listening around Arkansas, those of you on the internet, watching and listening wherever you may be. It's certainly an exciting day. It's a celebration. It's a new beginning. And that's one of the things that makes today special, a new era of Razorback football. The first person I'd like to introduce served as our interim athletic director. She began the search that has culminated this week. She's our vice chancellor. She's our senior associate director of athletics. Please welcome Julie Cromer-Peoples.
Chuck, thank you. We appreciate all of you being here for this very important day in Razorback football. It was almost 2 weeks ago that we initiated our search for our next head football coach. We had plenty to offer, including our history, our tradition, our facilities, our very passionate fan base, and also our competition in the nation's best conference and most difficult and challenging division in college football. We set out to find a coach with a relentless work ethic, with a high degree of accountability, the ability to hire quality staff that can match wits with the SEC and particularly with the SEC West, the ability to maintain good relationships within our state and beyond to attract the nation's top talent. We also were looking for a coach who was demanding but still relatable to the student athletes of this generation. And very importantly, we were looking for someone who would embrace the culture of our state, our university, and our program. Today we introduce a coach who not only meets all of those desired traits, but also leads an exciting brand of football that is both successful and entertaining. He is an innovative tactician who puts his players in the position to succeed. Chad Morris is about developing young men on and off the field. His high school coaching roots in Texas, as well as his collegiate stops at Tulsa, Clemson, and SMU, have only further solidified his relationships with coaches throughout our region and have led to distinct success on the recruiting trail. As we engaged in this process, one of the individuals I reached out to was former Razorback Athletics Director Terry Don Phillips. In that conversation, he expressed not only his confidence in Chad's coaching ability, but his absolute belief that he would be a great fit for the Arkansas program and would embrace what it means to be the head coach of the Razorbacks. I believe as our fans get to know him, they will see what I, Terry Don, and many others have already seen, that Chad Morris is prepared and is the right man to lead this program. I want to thank Chancellor Steinmetz for his unwavering support throughout this process. He afforded us the opportunity to move forward purposefully and efficiently with a coaching search, even though our department was in transition. Shortly after Hunter was hired as our new athletics director, I was able to share with him the status of our search and our determination that Chad Morris should be offered the job as our next head football coach. Hunter enthusiastically agreed, and with the approval of the chancellor, we moved quickly to make the offer. As you can tell by the presence of Coach Morris and his family here today, he answered our call. In addition to the chancellor, I would like to thank John Fagg, Clayton Hamilton, and Matt McCoy of our athletic department staff who worked directly with DHR International for their assistance in search logistics, background checks, and final paperwork in accordance with all university policies and procedures. And finally, I would like to thank our athletic department staff and especially our executive leadership team for continuing the daily work of supporting our student athletes and our coaches and support staff over the last 3 weeks. Coach, you'll find there is no better staff in the country, and we're ready to lock arms with you. From the beginning, I was confident that we could identify an outstanding coach, that we could maximize the many strengths of our program while taking on the challenges and opportunities of competing in the SEC. I have no doubt we have found the right coach to lead our program. And as a Razorback Nation, we have many things to look forward to as we enter the Chad Morris era.
Thank you, Julie. Arkansas is going to love Hunter Yurachek. We had an opportunity to meet him yesterday, and I know he's excited about having the opportunity to go to all corners of our state and meet you. And if you would, welcome to the podium right now our Vice Chancellor, our Director of Athletics, Mr. Hunter Yurachek.
Well, good morning. It seems like this is Groundhog Day for me again. I think I was sitting right here at this exact spot at this exact time yesterday. But not as much pressure on me today because I get the pleasure of introducing our new head football coach. But just wanted to thank all of you for being here first and foremost in support of our hiring of Coach Morris. It's certainly been an exciting few days for me and my family since Chancellor Steinmetz called to offer me the opportunity to come here to the University of Arkansas to be your Director of Athletics. I want to say thank you to those who have reached out to me from this community over the past 24 to 48 hours to welcome me and my family to this great state of Arkansas and to the University of Arkansas. I look forward again in the coming days, months, and years to getting to know each of you and serving as your athletic director. But today, again, is not about me. It's about meeting our new head football coach at the University of Arkansas. And before we do that, let me take a moment to introduce his lovely family that's sitting on the front row, starting with his son, Chandler. Stand up, Chandler. You got to stand up. His daughter, Mackenzie. Mackenzie, you want me to tell him where you go to school right now? Okay. All right. I won't tell him then. I won't tell him you go to Texas A&M. Okay. And his lovely wife, Paula. You heard from Julie about the search, and I want us to give her one more round of applause. You have no idea the fire she was thrown into here in the past couple of weeks. And she just did a wonderful job in showing her leadership ability and leading this football coaching search. And my role in this search, and I just want to be very clear, to use some football terminology, she had taken this search to about the 1-inch line, and it was a big scrum of players, and I was a big, hefty lineman that came and pushed the ball over the goal line. That's really where we were. And she, you don't know what she's been through in the past couple of weeks until you talk to her and really know the fire that she's thrown into. And she just unbelievable leader in what she did to get us to this point today. I also want to thank Chancellor Steinmetz for all his leadership in this process. The Chancellor is in Little Rock on business today, but I'd be remiss if I did not publicly acknowledge his tremendous contribution to this announcement we are making. When I spoke to the Chancellor about the athletics director position, I naturally asked about the status of the football coaching search. He assured me that the search was proceeding in a positive direction and that he was confident under Julie's guidance that we were in a great position to hire an excellent and great football coach to lead our program. And he was right. When I heard that we were on track to hire Chad Morris, I was excited and I was on board from the start. Having been around college football and nearby in Houston for the past few years, I was well aware of Chad Morris. He was a highly successful and innovative high school coach who built an incredible resume before taking his talents to the college game. As the offensive coordinator at Tulsa, he helped the Golden Hurricanes to a 10-3 record, leading one of the most prolific offenses in the game that year. In his 4 years at Clemson, he helped Dabo Swinney build a foundation of a program that resulted in a national championship and 3 consecutive appearances in the CFP. Coach told me when he first got to Clemson that the program at Clemson very much resembles what the program at Arkansas looks like today. How exciting is that for us right now? In 2015, we went on to SMU, and he did a remarkable job there. You guys may look at his win and loss record at SMU, but you may want to go back one more year. That program was 0-12 in the 2014 season before his arrival. At the University of Houston, we competed against that 0-12 SMU team that year. We competed against the 7-5 SMU team this year, and I can tell you there was a huge difference in those two programs under his leadership. But to know Chad Morris is to know far more than the X's and the O's. He's about people, he's about investing in the lives of young men who play for him and those who cheer him on. One of my best Chad Morris stories is he was recruiting my son earlier this spring, and my son was invited to one of their prospect camps this summer at SMU. My wife called me from that camp, and she said, "You want to know what that Coach Morris is doing?" And usually that's not good when my wife is going to call and tell me something like that. And she said, "There's over 400 kids at this camp. He has gone through the stands, and he has introduced himself to every single parent that is sitting in the stands, and he spent 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes with every parent." That speaks volumes of the quality of the person that Chad Morris is and how he invests in relationships, especially through the recruiting process. As I mentioned in my remarks yesterday, due to our location and our history, Arkansas has a tremendous opportunity to recruit some of the nation's best talent in Texas and throughout the region. When Chad Morris walks into a high school wearing that Razorback red, there's a great chance that the high school coach already knows him. But more importantly, they know where he comes from, the success he has had, and what he stands for. I'm excited for the fans of Arkansas to get to know him. And now, without further ado, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome to the podium the 33rd head football coach at the University of Arkansas, Coach Chad Morris.
Thank you. Wow. Go Hogs, right? Yeah, there we go. What a great day. What an incredible day. And there's so many people to be thankful for and just a credible opportunity. I just want to kind of piggyback off of what's been said earlier. Special thank you to all the people that were involved. Chancellor Dr. Steinmetz for taking time out to come to Dallas and visit. Obviously, the relentless effort of Julie. Thank you so much. Had to try to tell her last night about 10 o'clock up here at the football office to please try to go home and get some rest. We got this, and she's done an incredible job, and is such a pleasure to be around. Senior Associate Athletic Director John Fagg as well. Just want to thank you all. It's a great opportunity, and to put the time and the investment in to come and search for a head coach has been incredible. I also want to thank Jimmy Sexton, a very dear friend of mine, and couldn't be here today without his support. Our new athletic director, Hunter Yurchek. And Hunter, I appreciate you and what you've done. Obviously getting to know you over the time that we have in competing in the same conference. Thank you to the opportunity to be the next head football coach at the University of Arkansas. I promise you, the more you get to know me, I won't let you down. Our staff won't let you down. We want to win. Make no mistake about it. We're here to win. We want to win. We want to win championships. And that's what we're going to do. And that's the process that we're involved in right now today. I also want to thank so many other people that have made this day possible for me. I want to thank my former players and our staff all across the state of Texas and all my high school stops across the state of Texas. Wouldn't be here today without the support of those guys and all the many players that are now Arkansas Razorback fans. Now, I've gotten about 890 texts as of this morning, and a lot of those are from former players and staff members. I also want to thank my former players and staff that I was associated with at the University of Tulsa and obviously at Clemson. That those guys are so near and dear to me. Coach Sweeney, Coach McCorvey, those guys have been very instrumental in my success all along this journey. I want to thank those guys and the many players that I recruited along the way. A special thank and a belief in a Deshaun Watson, that a young man that I looked at as a freshman in high school and got on him recruiting and built a strong relationship. He's like a second son to us. And want to thank all our players. And to all my former players and staff at SMU and our administration at SMU. It was a very emotional day yesterday. The more you get to know me, you'll understand this. To walk into a group of young men 118 young men that have sold out for you, believed in you, and entrusted their livelihood with you to walk in and to share with them that you're leaving. It was very emotional. A lot of tears were shed. I stood in front of them like I'm standing in front of you and told them how much I loved them, how much I thanked them. And I hugged every one of them, and we all cried together. But and the many texts that they've sent me mean so much because we do. It's far more than about the game of football. Football is just what we do. It's not who we are. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a son. And I'm extremely proud of an opportunity to touch one life that may touch another life along this journey. To my daughter, Mackenzie, that's a junior at Texas A&M. To my son, Chandler, which is a sophomore at Highland Park. They're still in the high school playoffs. They got a big game Friday night. To my beautiful wife, Paula, thank you all for being my rock, my inspiration, my team. You give me so much. You allow me to do so much of what I'm so passionate about. And I want to say thank you all. I love you all. I love you dearly. This is what I was meant to do. This is what God has blessed me to do. And it's to coach football and impact lives. You'll find that it's far more than just about the coaches. The staff that we'll bring in here will have impeccable wives that are the home run hitters, that truly are so much a part of what we are and who we are and what we're trying to build. The coaches' kids that have to sacrifice so much for their dads to be away will be around. You'll see them around a lot. So now we get to do something special in the greatest conference in the country and build one of the greatest programs in the country. And we get to lock arms and we get to do it together. We will become the model program for all others to follow. I want to thank the Texas high school coaches. I want to thank the Arkansas high school coaches. I know we've got some Arkansas high school coaches here today. I know that their season is winding up. Some just finished, won a state championship. And I've already been in contact with a lot of these guys already, a lot of relationships that I've built along the way. I'm a high school football coach, and I'm extremely, extremely proud to say that. And if you've never been a part of a fraternity of high school coaches, you won't understand what I'm about to say. But when you're a high school coach and you're able to walk in and you know what you have to do, you have to wash the clothes, you got to line the field, you got to meet with boosters, you got to meet with the English teachers, you got to be in the lunchroom on lunch duty. You get it. And when I'm able to walk into a high school room and a high school coach's office and sit down and relate immediately to what their day-to-day life is. To our high school coaches in our state, we're here for you. This is your university. We're here for you. We want to make your life better. We want to make your job better. So we're here for you. We need you. I need you. And we're going to lock arms together with you to make sure that we all benefit and we see this program rise to the top as such a historic program it's been and get back to where it was in 1964. So you're always welcome here. To the Razorbacks past, present, and future. A program that has 42 bowl games, 13 conference championships, a 1964 national championship, and more to come. The Razorbacks from the past, I got a plan. I need you. I need you to be a part of this. This is your home. We're going to make a special effort daily to welcome you back. We want you here. We need you here. You're welcome back with open arms all day, any day. The Razorbacks present. I had an opportunity to meet with our team yesterday around 4:30, and it was such a pleasure to walk into a room and to see a group of young men that were hungry, a group of young men that were wide-eyed and doesn't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And I told them to hold on because it's going to move fast, real fast. And you better be ready when you come back in January. But I also saw a group of young men that, and I want to give a credit to Coach Bielema. I'm sorry, Coach Bielema. I want to give credit to Coach Bielema on the impact that he has had in those young men's lives. I know that they were kind of drifting out there for a while, and just but you could see the impact that he's had in their lives, and as far as touching their lives and the whole previous staff. It'll go a long way as we develop the relationship as we move forward and developing the new staff coming in place. So the Razorbacks of the future. Again, recruiting and retaining is our top priority. We're coming. We're coming fast. We're coming at you. The jet's fueled up, and we're ready to go. We're excited about it. We came here to win championships. We look forward to the guys that want to be the best, because that's what we're about. Because best is a standard at the University of Arkansas in every aspect of our program as we grow forward. Our first order of business in the short term is putting together a championship caliber staff. You'll see that coming into play over the next several weeks, and signing a premier class, which on the signing day on the 20th will be so critical of getting the guys in place. So that's why it's important to take over right now. Our staff, our recruiting class, will go to work on establishing the culture that will be set that will take us to the next step, to the next level. Our mission for this program is to prepare young men and young women for success, because we'll have young women that will work in our football offices, and they're just as much a part of this as to prepare them for success both on and off the field for the rest of their life. The culture of Arkansas football will be about winning championships. To win championships, you have to develop champions, and not just on the football field, but in the everyday life. Champions as people, champions as students, and champions as players. All three go hand in hand, and being a champion is not an event, it's a lifestyle. We don't want to win once in a while, we want to win every day. Offensively, you won't find a more explosive offense in all of college football. When we got to SMU, we were 128th in total offense, and we finished 8th in the country this past year. That same offense created excitement, created a top 10 finish, national championship appearances, and a national championship team at Clemson last year. So you'll see an exciting brand of football that'll be spread sideline to sideline, end zone to end zone. There won't be many time to sit in your seats. We'll go fast, we'll play fast, and we'll have fun doing it. Defensively, we'll be built around stopping the run. In this conference, you have to stop the run. I firmly believe that. I'll hire the best defensive coordinator in all of college football. That's our standard. We'll be physical. And the one thing, when the horn ends on Saturday afternoon and the game's over with, I want our guys extremely upset because they have to wait another 7 days before they get out there and hit somebody again. That's what we're going to build on the defensive side of the football. Special teams, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be explosive, and we're going to look to take every advantage of winning a ball game and creating turnovers on our special teams units. So moving forward, for our program, our message for this team, and what's next. The time is now. The place is here. And I'm humbled to be and honored to be your head football coach. The process has already started. The process of being better today than we were yesterday, and being better tomorrow than we are today. So with that being said, it's an honor, it's a privilege to be the head football coach at the University of Arkansas. The one thing you'll never have to do is you'll never have to tell me go. You may have to tell me whoa, but you won't ever have to tell me go. We're going to put it in the left lane. We're going to put the hammer down, and we're going to have fun. And I want to thank you all for coming out today, and go Hogs.
Thank you very much, Coach. At this time, we'll do a Q&A with our members of our media. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Please give your name and affiliation, and we'll take questions. We'll start over here with Bob Holt. Bob?
Hey, Chad. Bob Holt, Arkansas Democrat Gazette newspaper. You said you want to hire the best defensive coordinator in the country. I think a lot of people would say that's Brett Venables. I personally can't see why he'd leave Clemson to go anywhere. Are you talking about Brett, or who do you have in mind?
Well, yeah, I'm sure Coach Sweeney wouldn't like that, and but without just disclosing any names right now, I've got a short list, and some that I've had to play against and be around and watch and admire from afar. And so we got a great plan for that. So yes, we hope to get on that today.
Okay, we'll stay over on the right side, Josh.
Hey, Coach. Josh Bertuccini, 92 The Ticket. You got such a great track record. You had a lot of opportunities, I'm sure, in front of you. Why Arkansas and why now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Two things on that. It's all about timing and it's all about fit. And timing, you couldn't have it at a better time than right now. And I know Hunter shared a little bit and we talked during the interview process that 7 years ago, the similarities of what Clemson looked like and the vision that was being put in place, the staff that was being assembled. Clemson came off a 6-7 season, had just gotten beat by South Florida in a bowl game. And so coming in and seeing the similarities of 7 years ago and building that program and to where the University of Arkansas is right now the similarity is really scary, to be exact, as you look at it and how we can build this thing. The second thing is the ability to recruit. And growing up in the state of Texas and being a fan of college football, one of the things that you always admire, I grew up watching the old Southwest Conference days, and then all of a sudden everything transitions out. But being as close to the University of Arkansas, when Arkansas was winning big, they had a great mixture of players from the state of Arkansas, from the state of Texas, and then scattered through Louisiana, Oklahoma, and across the rest of the country. And so being able to recruit the state of Texas as well as putting a fence around the state of Arkansas is huge.
Okay, we'll stay right in front of you, Coach. Rick.
Rick Fires, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Hey, Chad, when Gus was making transition from Springdale High School to college level, he's met with skepticism from fans. I heard it from fans, some veteran coaches said, man, what you're doing at Springdale High School, that can't possibly work at college level. And I was wondering if you met any of that kind of skepticism. If so, how'd you deal with it?
I actually did, yes. And Gus and I had talked about that in depth. But one of the things I can say nowadays, when you go back into college football, let's say you go back 10 years ago, it's been a trickle-down effect. And a trickle-down effect, I mean, what's usually started in the NFL has came down to the college level, which trickles down to the high school level. Well, what you've seen over the last 7, 8, 9 years is it's been a trickle-up effect. There's been a lot of things because high school coaches are so innovative. And they have to structure their schemes around the players that they have. And so they have to be creative. They have to think outside the box. They have to do things that maybe that someone says you can't do. And so what you find is it's become a trickle-up effect. What started in high school goes to college, and now you're seeing some of the same things in the NFL. And I think it'll only continue to grow. I also believe that when you deal with high school coaches and the ability for these guys to come in and get with your college coaches, and we welcome all our high school coaches out. We pick up so much from those guys as well. So it's constantly a growing game. I mean, businesses aren't ran like they used to be ran 5 years ago or 2 years ago. It's the same way as college football. College football is constantly changing, and it changes every year.
Coach, we'll go right over here to right. Nate, second row.
Nate Allen, Sports Service. Are you ready to announce any coaches that you have hired, and do you intend to interview and possibly retain anybody from the holdover staff?
I'll be meeting with the staff here in the near future. I'm not ready yet to announce who's coming with me. There'll be a time and a place that we'll do that, but I've got a group that I've assembled, but we'll do that at another time.
Coach, we'll go over here in front of me in second row. Tom.
Hey, Chad, Tom Murphy with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette as well. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nate got my question right out from under me there, but I did see my friend Randy Ross over there with a Razorback lapel pin. So is there anybody you can confirm?
Well, you saw him with a Razorback pin on.
All right, we'll go in the same second row here on the aisle. Trey.
Hey, Coach. Welcome to Arkansas.
Yes, sir.
Trey Biddy with Hog Sports. I was just curious how familiar you are with your roster from a talent standpoint. Do you go back and watch old practice videos or game films, or does everybody just get a fresh start?
Well, from a football standpoint, had a chance to watch a few games this year. Of course, before all this came into play, everything just kind of came into play about 6 o'clock yesterday morning. I mean, it was, everybody kind of thought they knew what was going on and was ready to report something, but nothing really became finalized until about 6 something yesterday morning, somewhere around that time. And so to have an opportunity to go and start looking at the film and studying them over the last couple of weeks, I have not done that. Now, I have watched them several times this year, a couple of times in games. I met with the team yesterday, obviously. There'll be a time and place that we'll go back and watch. We will watch, really dive into the personnel. We like tight ends, and we're going to run with tight ends, but we also are going to spread the field out, and we'll run a lot of 12 personnel, 11 personnel, but we're going to do it at a breakneck speed, very fast.
All right, Coach, we'll go right here in front. Bo?
Hi, Coach. Bo Mattingly, Sports Talk here in Arkansas. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Can you just go into a little bit more description of your offense? And what will fans see? Maybe some more specifics with the kind of offense you run.
Yeah, well, obviously we're a two-back run-oriented play-action shot football team that does that in many different window dressings, so to speak. A lot of different formations, multiple movements. We'll do it very fast. So, we'll be 5 wides at a time. We'll go 5 wides back to 2-back. We'll reload back into 2-back. We can talk ball all day long, so I'll get ready. So we can do that. We'll go from 1-back to 2-back. A lot of changing of the structures. And trying to find the right personnel that creates mismatches. That's what this whole thing is about, is creating mismatches and getting our tight ends matched up with a backer, getting our tight ends matched up with a safety. Yep.
Okay, Coach, we'll go on the aisle here in the middle. Jason?
Yes, sir.
Chad, Jason Kersey with The Athletic. You described yourself as a high school coach. Why is that identity important to you, and how does that identity help you when it comes to recruiting?
Well, I think, first of all, and I shared just a little bit earlier about the high school coaches. Pardon me. High school coaches, they get it. You have to adjust and adapt, and you got to be able to do that quickly. They don't have the luxury of recruiting, or not supposed to. They have the luxury of recruiting, but and so they have to adjust and adapt their style with what they have to be able to walk in and to relate to them. To communicate and speak the same language and deal with some of the same issues that they've dealt with is important. I mean, it was with me when I would, as a high school coach and a college coach would come in and he had a high school background, I could relate immediately. It's those guys that walk in your door that you can't relate to is where you kind of the relationship stops. I'm a relationship guy, and if I can get the trust of the high school coach on my side, then obviously he's got the trust of the parents or the auntie or the uncle, whoever's the decision maker of that athlete. I can get them on our side. So, again, that's what this whole thing is about, is just being who you are. I got a degree in math and modern statistics, and I really believe that it allows you to think outside the box. So be able to walk in and to talk different things with a high school coach to help him out. And I share this, and we'll share this with all our high school coaches in our great state, is that when our college coaches, we'll have our entire staff divided up all over the state of Arkansas. So all 10 of our coaches will have a piece of Arkansas when they'll recruit to, and we'll see every high school in this great state. And I'll share with this and share with you, as I share with all these high school coaches, that when they walk into your room and they walk into your office, you make sure you get something from them. And I challenge them all. Ask them what their best 3rd and 6 play is. Ask them what their best pressure is against a short yardage. Ask them what their best movement is. Get something out of these coaches that walk in there, because they're far more than just about walking in and putting a card down and saying, who do you got? Because you may not have anybody, and you may not have a player that comes out of your school and hadn't came out in 8-10 years. That doesn't matter, because you will one day. So.
Coach, we'll go over here to our right on the aisle. Kurt.
Hey, Coach. Kurt Voigt, Associated Press. How do you feel like you have to adapt to the SEC, and what are some of the challenges you feel like that will present to you, and who will you rely on to help with the learning curve in that league?
Well, having been at Clemson and having played against several of those of the SEC opponents, Georgia, LSU's. We're very familiar with it and playing, developing our scheme and hiring quality coaches without getting too far in depth of the staff in place, hiring quality coaches that have experience in this league, have experience defending in this league. And offensively, we're going to put some of the best offensive coaches in all of college football out there. We get that. And defensively, it's my job to hire the best defensive staff. That's got a great in with the SEC and in with the dynamics of the way the league is ran. You got to stop the run. You got to be multiple defensively, and likewise on offense, you have to run the football. And you can do it in many different ways. There's not just one way to do those things. And so, but at the end of the day, it comes down to recruiting and retaining. And part of the retaining part of the players that you have, once you get them here, is the development of the guys to be able to play in this league. And being able to put a plan in place to take care of their bodies through the course of the rigors of the mental and physical grind of playing in this league weekly. And making sure that they're prepared and ready to go for Saturdays.
Coach, we'll go to the back of the row in front of me. Go ahead.
Coach Morris, Eric Sullivan from 103.7 The Buzz. What's the left lane? Would you describe your little, how do you say that?
Yeah, we're going to put it in the left lane and pop the clutch and put the hammer down.
There's your hashtag, Chuck Barrett, right there.
There it
is.
is.
There you go. Can you kind of go into more detail, if you don't mind, when you read people for a living? What did this current group of Razorbacks, when they saw you for the first time, kind of give us a little more of that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of uncertainty. They had a lot of these players are very friends with the players on SMU's team, and they had reached out to a lot of the players, and I think I think through some of the texts and tweets that have gone out from the current players here at Arkansas, and just from some of the support that they have gotten from our previous group at SMU. So I think there was a lot of uncertainty. I think there was a lot of guys that were excited, very attentive, wanted it, hungry, hopeful, and again, appreciated the previous staff and what they've done, but also looking forward to building relationships and moving forward with the new staff. Again, for me to walk in there as I was and just be myself and share with them. I shared with them how hard yesterday was, and to stand in front of your players and tell them bye, because it's built relationships. And so this is far more than just about the game of football. This is about developing these young men academically. They're going to graduate. 2, they're going to grow themselves socially. If they choose to grow themselves spiritually, they'll have that in place here as well. And the easiest part of our day will be to develop them on that football field.
Coach, we have 3 final questions. We'll start with Mitch Roberts over on the far aisle.
Hi, Coach. Mitch with 4029 Sports. When a program makes a transition from more of a running program to spreading it out like you plan to do, how long does that transition take? And have you thought about that as far as how long it might take here?
Oh, a little bit, and after this, we're going to go into more of a personnel meeting here in about an hour. We'll have a better understanding of how the roster is laid out. Obviously, I think there's a couple of things here that you look at from a lineman standpoint and D lineman. You've got to have that's the 2 priorities to compete in this league. Is you better have D lineman and you better have O lineman. And you better have some speed. You either have speed or you're chasing speed, and you don't want to be chasing speed. So our priority is to make sure that we're recruiting speed, they can compete in this level and in this league.
In the front.
With Hog Sports again. On the topic of recruiting, there are roughly 15 players on this roster from the state of Texas, scholarship players. When you were hired, was that part of your appeal, I guess, having connections to Texas? And I know you're probably worried about tomorrow, but when you envision this program 5 years from now, what kind of percentage of Texas players do you foresee on this roster?
Well, let's look at it like this. That's a great question. Let's look at it like this. And when you look at the Division I players that come out of the state of Arkansas, and whether that's 7 a year, 10 a year, whatever that may be, you look to be able to let's say you take 5 to 7 out of the state of Arkansas every year, and you're going to sign 20. There's no reason in the world you can't sign 10 kids out of the state of Texas, the most dynamic kids and high-profile kids out of that state every year. We've already started that process through the relationships that we've had. Started it yesterday before we got on a plane to get up here. And so there'll be a lot of excitement coming soon. But I think as you build this roster and you build over the course of time, you look at the prior history and of this storied program, and when they were as successful as they've been, the roster had a great blend of Texas players mixed with Arkansas players and then scattered through Louisiana and Oklahoma. So I can't give you an exact number, but I can tell you this: that's a huge footprint. Well, our heel mark will be the state of Arkansas. The rest of our footprint will roll right into Texas and into the surrounding states of Louisiana and Oklahoma.
Okay, we'll take one final question. Bobby Swafford.
Hey, Coach, Bobby Swafford, 5 News Sports. 8 years ago, you walked into a high school as a head coach. 8 years later, you're now the head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Did you ever see your career path take that veer, and did you expect it to happen that quickly once you did take the college level?
Well, everything we do, and it's always been this way. Everything you do, regardless if you're at Lake Travis High School or Stephenville High School or Eustis, Texas High School, wherever you're at, you give everything you got every day. You just be where your feet are. And I firmly believe that. That's the way we've built the program at SMU. When we took that job and everybody said, Coach, why? Why SMU? Why? And what are you doing? If I had that once, I had it 1,000 times, and I said, why not? Just be where your feet are. Be the best you can be every day. And to say that this was the path, the way it was all meant to be, I never looked at it that way. I looked at just being the best I could be every day. Our family to invest in the lives of the young men and young women that we're a part of every day. And if we can do that enough, great things happen. Good things happen to good people. And I firmly believe that. And that's what this has been about. It's really, truly, and it's not coach speak. It's truly be the best you can be today, right here, right now. Let's have the best press conference of anybody in the country right now. And that was my message to our team yesterday. Is this is how we're going to win a championship. We're going to win a championship by being a champion today, right here, right now. We'll worry about tomorrow. But so 8 years ago to be a high school football coach, and now 8 years later, here's what it is. I'm hope. That's what I am. I'm hope. I'm hope because there's a lot of high school coaches out there that are looking at me and looking at the college coaches throughout that have had high school experience and saying, you know what, if that guy can do it, I can do it. And so we give hope, we give dreams. And that's what's so inspiring about this profession is not only you get to touch the lives of young men, but you also get to touch the lives of young high school coaches that have such a huge impact in our culture of young men and young women of today. And make no mistake of the power of that we have. And so if I can help touch one life that touches many others, that's I'm at peace with that. And same as with my wife Paula. And we're very instrumental in our community, and that carries forward with our players as well. So.
All right, thank you, Coach. And we'll hand it back over to the voice of the Razorbacks, Chuck Barrett.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Hey, let's hear it again for Coach Chad Morris. Now, Coach, let me tell you, we love to call the Hogs in Arkansas, and we can't wrap up a proper Razorback celebration without calling the Hogs. We've got the Spirit Squads here. I'm going to ask your lovely wife, Paula, to join us. I'm going to ask your children, Mackenzie and Chandler, to join us on the stage. We're going to call the Hogs as we wrap up this press conference introducing our new head coach. All right, guys, lead us. Good luck. Let's call those Hogs. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your attendance today. We'll see you soon, and go Hogs.
Yes, EC West teams with new head coaches. Let's see what they face. Chad Morris. Not a bad start. I don't know. Colorado State, Mike Bobo. That's a tough game. State with Coach Moorhead at K-State. That could be tricky. And then at Kentucky, A&M, Clemson, Bama. Yeah.
Hello, Arkansas football players. I am your head coach, Chad Morris. That was the Twitter account, or photo from the Twitter account from Arkansas Razorback AD introducing himself to the football players. I'm introducing myself, Peter Burns, Jordan Rogers, Chad Morris, Arkansas. Your thoughts?
Well, that meeting room, it's like a first date. You're learning about each other. I like the fit, though, from a standpoint of what you need to fix. You got to bring in an offensive guy, and this is really an arms race in the West and the East. You see the coaching hires of recent. Everybody's trying to get some offense to compete with Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, respectively, in both sides of the division. He has a track record of developing talent. That's what I like most. Developing offenses. Did it at Clemson. Recruited Deshaun Watson. Have you heard of that guy?
Yeah, decent.
Not too bad at the Texans. And then at SMU, completely turned around a horrible offense to a top 10 offense.
Yeah.
He's got a track record. It's not going to be something that happens overnight.
That first year he was at SMU, they were averaging 16 points a game. He leaves, not good. He leaves 40 points a game. Better. Biggest question mark, whether or not he can turn around this offense or what's going to happen on the other side of the ball with defense.
I think it's going to be the other side of the ball. I mean, the offense is going to be something that gradually gets there. All the pieces are in place. You really just lose Austin Allen off that offense. Everybody else is back. But the defense, this school, or Bielema and Paul Rhodes were under a 12-month transition to move this from a 4-3 to a 3-4. Recruiting, scheme. SMU ran a 4-3. Are they going to come into Arkansas and pick up where this last staff left off from a recruiting and a development standpoint, or are they going to kind of flip it back? That's a decision that we'll see in recruiting, and we'll see next year on the field which way they go.
Fine Bombers are watching us right here, right now. What's the expectation level? Is this a team that can go bowling next year? Is it a 2-year process to kind of get back? What do you think?
Well, I mean, if you just look at the talent they have coming back, everybody, as I said, on offense, minus, Chase Hayden is a great and talented back that'll be getting a lot of action. All the receivers, the offensive line stays intact. On defense, you lose Bijan Jackson and a few guys from your secondary. So primarily, everybody's coming back. Can they institute it quick enough to turn this thing around, get 6-7 wins? I think so. I think they can.
These are the new coaches in order of hiring: Matt Luke, Mullen. Yeah, you got them. So how did everybody do?
Paul, that's what we were going to ask. How would you grade these coaches? Who would you give A's to?
Certainly, I would give A's to Florida and A&M. What about you guys?
Definitely an A for Florida. A for A&M. I agree with you 100%. I'm close to an A for Mississippi State and Joe Moorhead, but that comes in at a B+ for me.
Okay. What else you got?
Any B's for you, Paul? B hires?
I'm listening to you guys first. I want to see where you go here.
Oh, okay. B is B-. I go Joe Moorhead B-.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'd like to see a little more experience besides just the Fordham. Probably a B for Matt Luke too.
You play the easy teacher. I'll play the tough teacher.
Well, okay. I guess like the thing is, Pruitt, I'm going to give an NA. You know, I don't know yet.
I would agree with you on Pruitt. I would like to hear him before. I think it's a good hire. I want to hear what he has to say first.
Hayes is not like the NA.
There's nothing worse than a cop-out on national TV. When
it's an NA. It's an incomplete. It's an incomplete. He's never been a coach before.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't grade
All right, Chad
hire.
Morris. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, teacher.
Chad Morris, I give a C.
C?
A C to Arkansas.
C.
Chad Morris.
Okay. Matt Luke? Professor Hayes?
That's a C. It's a passing grade.
Passing grade.
It's a C.
Okay. So what would you give Jeremy Pruitt?
I'd give it a B-.
B-?
What do you think? Those grades are realistic, Paul?
Yeah, those are good. I may go higher on Jeremy Pruitt. I really do like the hire. I've talked to some coaching friends today, and they are all extraordinarily high on the hire of Jeremy Pruitt. I think inside the beltway, so to speak, guys, maybe higher than some of the fans who are just getting to know him. But I really do like this hire. And we welcome you back. I hope you were with us yesterday morning when we had live coverage of the introduction of Chad Morris, and during that we saw Hunter Yurchek, who was named the day before as the new Vice Chancellor and Director of Athletics at the University of Arkansas. He comes there from the University of Houston. He has also served as athletic director at Coastal Carolina and served at many other schools, including Virginia, Western Carolina, Wake Forest, and Vanderbilt. And he joins us now from Fayetteville. Hunter, thanks for being here. Congratulations. I'm sure this week has been quite memorable for you.
It has been a very special week for me and my family, and hopefully the Arkansas Razorback family. Paul, I've missed a lot of the discussion this week. Has it ended between Alabama and Ohio State? Is the debate over yet?
It's over, and Alabama prevailed, of which we're not supposed to take sides, but we will. We're pretty happy to hear that.
I'm sure your constituents in the state of Alabama are very pleased this week.
They have had a good run, and a lot of happy folks in the SEC with two teams, and I know that's someplace ultimately you'd like to see your program in. But before we get to all of that, I am interested in your discussions. It's rare that an athletic director is hired in the middle of a coaching search. So we always ask coaches, when did you first hear about this possibility? What about an athletic director?
Well, this possibility really came to light very quickly. Roughly a little over 10 days ago, Chancellor Steinmetz reached out to me, really just out of the blue. I picked up the phone. It was a Fayetteville, Arkansas call. We had a great discussion for a half hour, 45 minutes. Then we met in Houston prior to our basketball game versus Arkansas on Saturday, and then he called on Monday prior to the board meeting and asked if I wanted to be the candidate that he moved forward to the board for approval. And, of course, I said absolutely.
And at that point, Hunter, the coaching search was running contemporaneously to yours. You get the job, and I'm sure you're updated on everything else that is going on. What happened next?
Well, once I signed my letter of offer, I got on the phone with Julie Crumber's people here at the university, and we talked about where the search was and the people that her and her consulting group had interviewed, and Chad Morris was at the top of her list. And of course, I'm familiar with Coach Morris from my time in the American Athletic Conference, and remember back in 2014 when at the University of Houston we played SMU the day after Thanksgiving to conclude SMU's 0-12 season. Chad Morris took over right after that, and he's slowly built that program to a 7-5 team that's going to a bowl game. And he took a team that was really at the bottom of the NCAA ranks, and he's moved them slowly up, especially on the offensive side of the ball, being ranked in the top 10 in total offense this year.
Let's move it forward to yesterday. Certainly you introduced him and you sat there listening to him. He made a very positive impression. I was watching through a television screen, but what was it like in that room?
There's a great deal of energy, a great deal of enthusiasm, and I think a great deal of relief from the fan base here at the University of Arkansas and across this great state. Chad Morris is a phenomenal person, first and foremost. He's a phenomenal football coach. I think he is the right person at the right time in the history of our football program here at the University of Arkansas to really take this program where it needs to be and to compete in what is the toughest conference and really the toughest division right now, Paul, in the SEC West.
As someone who has a lot of experience as an athletic director and has worked in many athletic departments, I am interested in your vision. I know you laid some of it out the other day in your news conference. I don't know how many of our maybe some of our listeners in Arkansas or viewers may have seen it, but for those who didn't, most interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, my vision, I presented Chancellor Steinmetz with a 100-day plan, and one of the things he told me was very, very important, that the athletic director at the University of Arkansas needed to get across the state, out and about, and meet the various constituents from Fayetteville down to Little Rock, over to Pine Bluff, and really to be someone that unites his state and brings the Razorback Nation back together again. And obviously that engine starts with football, and your football program unites your fan base, your alumni base throughout your state. And the University of Arkansas is the kind of the flagship school in Arkansas. There's not other professional sports. There's not another major college per se, and there's a lot of gravitation obviously towards what the football program at the University of Arkansas is doing, and we've got to get the football program right, and that started yesterday with the hiring of Chad Morris.
Talking to Hunter Yurachek, the new Vice Chancellor and Athletic Director at Arkansas, on that front, what is your expectation, because this always gets confused. Some fan bases get confused about where their program should go and who they are. What is your impression? I realize you've only been there a couple of days of where this program should be.
Well, one of the things that I really liked when Coach Morris and I talked on Tuesday night for a little bit, he compared where Arkansas is today to where Clemson was 7 or 8 years ago when he arrived on Dabo Swinney's staff, and the level of talent that's here and the opportunity that exists within this state and within this region to recruit some of the best talent and bring them here. And so, Coach Morris, my expectation is we build a program that this community and this state is very, very proud to come out and support. But we've got to win football games, Paul. That's the bottom line. That's what Coach Morris is going to be judged on. That's what I'm going to be judged on. And so that's got to happen. And so we've got to continue to show growth and improvement as we head into 2018 and 2019. And I'm not going to put a win-loss record on a successful season, but we'll know the successful season by the growth and the competitive nature of Arkansas football moving forward. And
you already know this because you're involved in intercollegiate athletics, but I've always thought, and I'm really anxious to get your thoughts on this, is that the Arkansas fan base, even when things aren't great, are so loyal. That is such a unified state, unlike other states where there's another SEC school to compete. So I don't think it is as big a challenge, but how do you get everyone, Hunter, to coalesce around this program and make sure everybody's going to the same heartbeat?
Well, I think the big thing, Paul, is that everybody across this state that's so proud to support the University of Arkansas, they got to feel a part of our program. And being a part of a program means that they can touch and feel your program and touch and feel your athletic director, your head football coach, your head basketball coach, your baseball coach. And we've got to do a great job of getting out and about around this state and really having one message that we're pushing forward as an athletic program that really unites this state across the board. You talked about the passionate fan base. I think I started Twitter, my own Twitter account, 7 or 8 years ago when I became the athletic director at the Coastal Carolina University. I think Monday afternoon before I got the job, I had a little over 5,000 followers. I think that number, my son told me earlier today, is over 20,000 now, and that's just in 72 hours of being the athletic director here at the University of Arkansas. That'll tell you a little bit about the passion of this fan base.
Leave it to a young person to keep track of how many Twitter followers Dad has.
That's exactly right.
I am interested in your family because I saw them. It has to be pretty exciting for them. I realize you had a really good job in Houston. That was an incredibly successful program, but this is a bigger program, one that resonates all over the country.
It is. My family's very excited about the move. I wasn't able to bring my family to the introductory press conference. My oldest son, Ryan, is a senior tight end at Marshall University. He's in the middle of final exams in his bowl game out in New Mexico next week. My middle son, Jake, is finishing up his senior year at Friendswood High School and hoping for an opportunity to continue his career in football at the next level. And then I've got a 7th grader, Brooks. He's 13, and he's just flew up today, him and my wife, and we're going to spend some time getting out and about here in Fayetteville in this community, getting to know some of the constituents this weekend.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know it already. That is a beautiful part of the world in northwest Arkansas, and I know that there is a lot to do. It comes at a busy time with Christmas. You got basketball with Coach Anderson. I know there's a big game this weekend, but we look forward to getting to know you. And Hunter, thanks so much. I know it's an incredibly busy time for making time for us this afternoon.
Paul, it's a pleasure. Anytime you want to have me on to talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks, I will be available.
Well, we will do that. We appreciate it. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much, Paul.
What a fantastic conversation with Hunter Yurachek, the new Vice Chancellor and the Director of Athletics at the University of Arkansas, naming an athletic director and a head football coach on back-to-back days. So we talked to the Arkansas Athletic Director, Hunter Yurachek. So what about Jerry Jones, arguably the most famous and prominent Arkansas alum? His thoughts on the new hires in Fayetteville.
I do know him, and I respect him and have respected him. I think Arkansas did well. I hate it that SMU has lost him, and as you know, I have the majority of my friends live where I live, and of course we're all for SMU. On the other hand, I'm proud for Arkansas because they really do have an outstanding individual that is really, I think, got a great future.
Jerry Jones trying to play to both the Arkansas Razorback fan base and his home base there in Dallas. SMU carries a lot of weight in that town, guys.
He would make for a good politician.
Yeah.
Did very well speaking out of both sides of his mouth there.
Yeah, he left the door open, but also whatever happens, he was ahead of the curve on that one.
That was a good conversation. It seems like Arkansas has a leader in that athletic department now.
You know what I heard? I heard a lot of we need to get out there and meet the people again. I'm not that familiar with where the disconnect came with Jeff Long, but I have a feeling that Hunter will be coming to your neighborhood if you live in Arkansas.
You know what will be interesting, Paul? The discussion around Arkansas playing a home game in Little Rock every season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always a pretty controversial one.
That will be an issue.
That's a big divisive issue out there.
Yeah, there's strong arguments on both sides there.
And there's renovations happening in Fayetteville at Razorback Stadium as well.
Razorback, yep. What struck me is just when I see some of these people for the first time was just how personal it was. He came in, fired a joke at you. You know, I like to see that. That's a sign of confidence in my mind. So.
Jeff Long had been there a long time. I always liked him, but sometimes you can be someplace too long.
So once again, the finalists for the 2017 Heisman Trophy are
Lamar Jackson, the University of Louisville.
Runs it straight ahead. Jackson is away. They will not catch Lamar Jackson.
Bryce Love, Stanford University.
Bryce through a hole. It's a foot race, and guess who's going to win it? Bryce Love, touchdown.
Baker Mayfield, the University of Oklahoma.
Baker back, gonna throw deep, wide open. He's got it. It's a touchdown. Baker Mayfield. It's over.
And now, I am proud to announce that this year's Heisman Trophy winner is Baker Mayfield of the University of Oklahoma.
Sonny Dykes knows all about coaching in Texas. He has been around and has been very successful. It appears that he is heading to SMU to complete, we think, the coaching carousel. It's not done yet, but certainly among the leading candidates. Greg, you know the terrain in Texas very, very well. Obviously, you grew up there, played high school football there. These are some of the notable hires of the off season. What do you make out of Sonny possibly ending up out there?
Call me crazy, Paul, and I'd be curious to get your opinion on this. I happen to think SMU is one of those sleeping giant little group of five schools. Now, will they ever ascend past a Texas or an Oklahoma or an Oklahoma State? Absolutely not. But why can't they create something similar to what UCF has created in Florida? You're in a big market. You're in a wonderful school, a lot of resources and money, and a ton of talent in your own backyard. It's one of the biggest, obviously, hotbeds for recruiting in the entire country is the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, I know TCU many, many years ago far surpassed SMU, and SMU has had a difficult time getting back to being notable, but I think Chad Morris has the program moving in the right direction, and why can't this be one of those perennial contenders in the group of five? It's a beautiful place. And another thing, too, Paul, I mean, I think that if one of these conferences were to realign, they might look at a place like SMU down the road. Now, it might be several years, but if SMU can establish some continuity and sustain some success, then it could be an opportunity for one of those conferences that does want to expand and expand their footprint. Maybe SMU is one of those places they evaluate.
Meanwhile, John Chavis, the well-traveled one, Tennessee, LSU, A&M, Jimmy Kimmel Show. He's now in the, forget the last part. He's now in the running for the DC at Arkansas. Chief, on the way to Hogland. I bet he could do a good woo pig suey. And Dixie is up next.
Hello?
How are you?
Hello, am I on?
Yes, you are. You're on.
Yeah, I'm out working in the yard. Listen, I've been seeing out a lot of people from Arkansas advocating for John Chavis to come up there and be defensive coordinator. That ain't ever going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, from what I hear, they're going to hire the defensive coordinator off of Clemson's staff. And number two, John Chavis is the most overrated defensive coordinator. He just got Kevin Sumlin fired down there because UCLA come back on John Chavis defense. I've been seeing him screw things up since he was up at the University of Tennessee. And let me tell you something. Niall Davis, every running back we've ever had, has ran through a John Davis defense like a hot knife through butter. So you can take that back to the bank. And, hey, all you people down in Alabama, don't break your arm patting yourself on the back because you elected a Democrat. Because let me tell you something. That Judge Roy Moore, one, he shouldn't be called a judge because he got kicked off the bench twice for violating the Constitution. He's a terrible human being, and I don't care about him being a West Point graduate. Simplify on that.
Wish I was in the land of Dixie. Isn't that her name? Did they name it after her? Thanks for the call. Wow. Getting defensive in the East. These are the SEC head coaches now. All defensive coaches, except for one, and that is Dan Mullen. West, how do you feel about that? I think they've taken offense to it. Only two defensive minds. Ogeron and that fella in Tuscaloosa. So who really benefits from that? I have no earthly idea. I think when you're everyone likes to be offensive-minded, but Nick Saban's the best coach in the league.
Oh, getting piggy with it. Here's what Arkansas has. This is what he's inheriting. Finished 4-8, last place in the SEC West, 1-7 in the SEC. Tough year, certainly. And the notable 2018 returnees, I think this is what you really look at. You know, the Allen era is over. Brandon Allen and Austin Allen no longer there. So quarterback Cole Kelly, certainly a big body at the QB position. Needs some work in some areas, but he will be coming back as well as defensive end McTelvin Agim. So good stuff there.
Coach, thanks for being with us. I watched your press conference live, and you nailed pretty much everything. I'm most interested in how you got the Woo Pig Suey down on such short notice.
Well, actually, my wife the night before YouTubed it, and we had to practice in Dallas in our living room before we flew up on the next day.
Wait, yeah. I'm imagining just the visual there. You two in the living room, just doing Woo Pig in the living room. I'm sure that was fun. Did you critique each other and kind of say, hey, your form's a little off?
Well, no, but we did know this. We knew, of course, my son, Chandler, he was like, hey, look, we can't mess this up. We can't get off on the wrong foot right off. And I said, absolutely. So let's get it out. Let's practice right now.
Coach, I have to tell you something. I was out there a couple of years ago, and they were going to ask me to do it, I think, on our set. I did the exact same thing, and I still screwed it up. So obviously that's why you're the head coach, and I'm watching.
You know, Paul sometimes messes those things up that are very important to schools. But Coach, we just saw the graphic there of what's coming back for you, what you're inheriting there at Arkansas. And I know it's been a whirlwind for you, but have you had a chance to see what's on this team a little bit and kind of, look at the state of the program?
Well, you know what's kind of ironic about this is that throughout the course of the season, sitting in a hotel room getting ready to go and play our games, Arkansas actually came on two or three times, and I, just from afar watching it, and just kind of evaluating and just watching the schemes on both sides of the ball. But as far as just looking at the roster, finding out what's coming back, I've got an idea. But a little bit more with this early signing period, which has been absolutely crazy. I hadn't had a chance to do anything but drink a lot of Red Bull and try to stay on the run as much as I can. But that's something that we'll come back in on maybe definitely on Sunday night and Monday and really get into our roster deep.
How many Red Bulls a day, Coach?
Well, I'm rolling pretty good right now.
That's what we call a non-answer.
Yeah, we'll send you a case in the mail soon.
But I do want to ask you about that because we just got through talking about the early signing period, and it's hard to figure out from a distance what's it been like up close.
Well, it's at the time I think everybody thought it was a good idea, but what we're finding out, and especially with the coaching changes right now, is you're having to get into contact periods. They hired me on Thursday. I've basically been here 8 days. You're trying to get into people's living rooms. You're trying to get into schools with the guys that are committed to hang on to the commits gather guys, make sure that, look, give me a chance to build a relationship. You're trying to build a 2-year, 1-year, 2-year relationship in about 20 minutes, and that's impossible. And and you go into these schools, and a lot of these kids right now are in final exams. And so, how many times these kids are being pulled out of class right here in a key time for them, it's been very difficult. I didn't see it in this scope, but it has been very challenging.
Yeah, I think we don't even know exactly yet what some of the challenges could end up being. You're bringing up a lot of them. So, Coach, I'm just curious about this, and you may not even know. Do you expect more of your class to sign early, or do you expect a lot of them, or a good portion, to wait until February?
I think what you're going to find is probably about 50-50. I think you've got some guys that have been committed to the University of Arkansas, and with the coaching change, they're still committed, but they want to build that relationship and make sure it's the right fit for them. And then you got some that we've had existing relationships with, maybe that they've got a coach that knew me from a prior relationship along the way that kind of can vouch to the type of person I am and the staff we're going to bring in that are ready to go on Wednesday. So the way it's looking right now, I'm seeing about 50-50, and that's okay, because if you're unsure, we want to have a chance to build a relationship with you and just give us a chance through the month of January.
And, Coach, you just mentioned the staff, and I think I know how you're going to try to answer this, but how difficult is that with some of the people that you may be interested in bowl games and maybe playing in bigger games than that?
Yeah, it's been really tough, Paul, on that when you start looking at it, because they've got obligations to their other university that they're at right now, and they're in a signing period and a signing class time that they don't want to do anything to disrupt there. That's been very difficult. And so, while we've got a really strong idea of what my staff is going to look like, you're not ready to announce anything and can't announce anything right now until some of these games get out of the way, and definitely until after the 20th gets here.
Coach, what would you like to make this Arkansas team look like? I know that's a broad question, but just with what you're bringing over from SMU, what do you think is realistic very early there?
Well, a couple of things, and that's a great question, because one of the things that we talked about during the process of the interview, and we interviewed it several times, I got to Clemson when they were coming off a 6-7 season. And the dynamics of that program, and Coach Sweeney being a young head coach at that time, the vision that he had in place for that program, the dynamics of both of those programs, this program and Clemson, are very similar. Arkansas looks very similar to what Clemson looked like some 7 years ago. And so, with the vision and the values that we're going to put in place, and the recruiting and our networking throughout the state of Arkansas down into Texas and around our bordering states to recruit high-level players, very similar. So one of the things that I would say about this program, it is a great time. It's a great fit for me being the head coach here, and you would want to get this program back to where it's been several years ago, and winning championships, and eventually build it into a prominent week in and week out top 5, top 2 program in the country.
Coach, I know it's been crazy. We really appreciate you making a few minutes for us, and we really do hope to get to know you better in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Oh, what a pleasure. Very interesting conversation there with Coach Morrison. I have to admire him. He just shot straight. I mean, he said this was a mess.
Yeah,
with his early signing
and he also said that a lot of people thought it would be a good thing, but we didn't necessarily predict some of this. A good point, too, from Coach Morris about how a lot of these high school kids are in exams right now, and time is winding down in this part of the year for them. They're about to head into holiday breaks and all that. It is. I mean, I just wonder how quickly things could be changed with it, if there were change in the future, if coaches came together and said, hey, this didn't really work. But, it also remains to be seen how many do end up signing early, and that will factor in as well.
After all the effort and money spent, this is according to Saturday Down South, is the SEC better with its new coaches than it was? So I asked that question. Certainly, I think it really depends. But, guys, overall, wouldn't you think it is better? Still kind of hard to look at Hayes like that, but
I think it is.
Oh, vastly better. Vastly improved, I think. brought in some big names from outside the conference. They promoted a few coordinators.
Let's do this. We'll do this by the jobs. Okay. Ole Miss. You think Ole Miss is better with Matt Luke over Hugh Freeze?
No.
No way. Mississippi State. Joe Moorhead over Dan Mullen?
No.
Okay, so there's two that aren't better. Tennessee. I think I know where we're going here. Jeremy Pruitt over Butch Jones.
Better.
Too soon to tell, but I lean better.
Okay.
Anybody would have been better than Butch Jones, Paul.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
The results weren't there for Butch, yeah.
Arkansas, we have Chad Morris over Brett Bielema.
Much better.
Wow.
That's just because I'm bitter. Brett Bielema blocked me on Twitter.
We all knew that's why it was, John.
By the way, I tried to intervene there, and he said, if you bother me again with this, I'm blocking you.
Chad Morrison is his helicopter now up in Arkansas. Craig, what's the story?
That's a good way to get around a helicopter. It's a little bit different than for him than it is for Mississippi State. They've only got roughly 10 commits, so it's really about more looking towards the future for them. It's about laying ground at Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma.
Arkansas, of course, one of 6 SEC programs with a new head coach, coming on the heels of a 4-8 season that saw the end of the era for Brett Bielema. They bring in from SMU head coach Chad Morris, so he's had a short time to this point to assemble his first Razorback recruiting class. Of course, one of the key changes there will certainly be a quarterback, where Austin Allen's time is up. Speaking of quarterback, they have gotten a signature from one Greenwood, Arkansas's own Connor Noland, who sent in his letter with a beautiful tweet as well. When in Rome, become a Razorback. Very honored and excited to officially sign my NLI to play for the Razorbacks at the Coliseum in the Eternal City. You show me a signing day tweet better than that. You can't. That's a challenge that will not be met. How about it? Let's go to Fayetteville right now and bring in the first-year head coach of the Razorbacks. That was, Coach, that was impressive. Chad Morris joining us now. That tweet. So whether it's getting a Noland or coming up with a phenomenally named linebacker bumper pool, or just simply really seeing your team come together, what's got you the most excited over the course of this day?
Well, obviously to see the signing day, you know, the venue that Connor signed at was pretty impressive right there. I don't know if you can top that. But, you know, I tell you what, it's been really, the last 13 days have been, as you can imagine, a whirlwind, trying to go in and build relationships in a short period of time. Some of these guys we've recruited before when we were at SMU and had a little bit of a relationship with, so it wasn't quite as hard. But it's been exciting. It's been a lot of fun.
Coach, you've been asked to do a little bit amount of time. So let's just pull back for a second with the bigger picture and the overall philosophy. I've heard you mention the importance of the state of Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana in your recruiting. You know, Arkansas traditionally hasn't been that active the last few years in the state of Texas. Talk about what your blueprint is going forward.
Well, I think when you look at the history of the University of Arkansas and the success that they've had at their pinnacle, there's been a great mixture. First of all, we got to win our state. We got to put a border around this state and capture the top 5 to 7 SEC caliber players coming out of this state. They have to come to the University of Arkansas, and that's going to be first and foremost the number one priority with us coming in. We'll have 10 coaches in our state starting next year or this spring, and building that fence around this state. And then obviously our connection into the state of Texas, being in that state for 18 years and the relationships that we have there. You've got to get a good mixture out of the state of Texas. You also got to recruit the Oklahoma market and the Tulsa area, the Missouri, and down into Louisiana, and then take your relationships across the Southeast and go find some key players that you can't find in these others. But really the blueprint and the footprint for this model is going to be right here in Arkansas, down into Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana.
Coach, philosophical changes when a head coach comes in. You're still trying to hire staff, get guys there. What's the pitch to these guys that may be on the fence about coming to Arkansas? How do you assure them that it's the right fit? Do you sell them on the school? Do you tell them we're tailored towards your talents? How do you sell that when you're in these homes, being in this short period of time you've had to try to attract these guys?
Well, first of all, there's two phases there. One, you always look at the prior history, and we challenge all our recruits to look back and reach out to maybe some of the former players that we've coached, we've been around, watch some of the success that we've had in the past, whether that be at Clemson, whether that be at SMU or at Tulsa or wherever it may have been. Look at our track record, and that's not going to change. We're going to do it. We're going to do it the right way. And also on the other part of it is assuring these guys defensively that we're going to hire some of the best defensive coaches in all the country that's going to develop your talent and your skill set. And you got a chance to come in here and you can compete and play early in the best league in college football and the best division in college football.
Chad, you've had a chance to be there long enough to, evaluate your own players, because obviously you got to see what you have on campus there before you know exactly what you have to go out and get. Obviously, philosophically, you believe in spreading the field, getting a ton of speed on the field. How is that going? How do you feel in terms of what you have versus what you need offensively?
Well, I did, and really Sunday after our official visit weekend ended, we spent Sunday and Monday and all day and into the night on Tuesday kind of evaluating the talent that's here. And I'll tell you, very impressed with a lot of the young kids that they've recruited, and a lot of young kids played last year. So it's I'm excited about what's coming back, but also feel like there's got to be a need. We've got to go out and get some more speed. We got to get some more length on the defensive side of the ball, and that's been a key focus for us.
Chad, you obviously will have to find a new #1 quarterback with Austin Allen's time in Fayetteville obviously being up and the career that he had. We all got to watch it up close. I know Cole Kelly got plenty of time. I know you also have another quarterback coming in, and we mentioned Connor Noland. Just in general, how will you anticipate approaching the quarterback position as you get closer to spring ball?
Well, first of all, I look forward to meeting these guys and really developing a great relationship with them and getting to know their personalities. And I watched obviously several games of them this year from afar and from a very unbiased standpoint. And then to get these guys in here when they come back in winter, to be able to put them in our system and get them in a film room and talk with them and then get them out on the skill set, get them out on the field and watch their skill set. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for everybody that comes in. And one thing about a coaching change, everybody is the past is behind you. Everybody's on an equal playing field, and everybody's got to prove the same thing every day.
We look forward to watching you build this program, Chad. Good to talk with you, and best of luck the rest of the way over this 72-hour period.
You bet. Thank you.
Among the 6 first-year head coaches in this league are with their teams. Arkansas head coach Chad Morris. He did get a quarterback, Connor Noland, out of the state of Arkansas, an ESPN 300 guy, but also bumper pool. Yes, a top 20 inside linebacker with a phenomenal name. Here's Chad Morris.
You always look at the prior history, and we challenge all our recruits to look back and reach out to maybe some of the former players that we've coached, we've been around, watch some of the success that we've had in the past, whether that be at Clemson, whether that be at SMU or at Tulsa or wherever it may have been. Look at our track record. We've won our whole life. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for everybody that comes in. And one thing about a coaching change, everybody is the past is behind you. Everybody's on an equal playing field, and everybody's got to prove the same thing every day. Big day, very kind of first of the signing class, unique to have an early signing period, and to say that we were going to hit the ground running 13 days ago, I think is an understatement. We did have 7 members join us, as we call our Razor Fast 18 group, 7 members, expecting possibly 1 to 2 more may join us before Friday. We'll see. 4 defensive players, 3 offensive players, and definitely feel like that we address some of the speed and the size and the length that we were going after. The biggest thing is you have to go with a fit. Well, what fits us? What fits the University of Arkansas? There is such thing as fantastic football players that don't fit the University of Arkansas. We don't need those. There's such thing as really, really good football players and great football players that do fit, that like the setting that we have and like the dynamics of being able to come in and contribute and maybe contribute early. Those are the guys you want to get. It doesn't really matter to me. We don't star recruit. A guy may be a 2-star or a 5-star. Does he fit? Because if he fits, that's what we want. And I think you can look at some of the premier NFL teams out there. We actually did a study on the Dallas Cowboys of the number of 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, all the way down to no stars that are made the roster. And I want someone that wants to be here. I want someone that's hungry. I want someone that's excited to be able to come in and make a difference and to change the dynamics of a program. And I've said this many times, sitting in many living rooms, this is a sleeping giant. And I firmly believe with the right fit and the right combination and the momentum and the energy that we're going to bring, that we're going to wake it up. But we got our targeted guys. We're in contact with them. They're excited. We'll have 3 big official visit weekends coming up. 2 of those will be tied in with a basketball game that we'll be excited about to get these young men on campus. And so I'm very confident that over the next few weeks that we'll be able to pick up some much anticipated needs to fill some of our roster spots. And I also don't want to fill up. There's a chance that as this whole thing happens, and if you have attrition, there may be someone out there at the end of this thing that wants to find a home that fits us.
Nick Chubb is college football's most unfairly overlooked superstar. We'll talk about that in a minute with Dan Wilkin. He wrote the article. He's in good company. I mean, I don't want to say he doesn't get attention because we're giving him attention right now, but he doesn't get attention.
And it's Georgia versus Alabama. Nick Saban and the Tide looking for their 5th championship in the last 9 seasons. And Kirby Smart in Georgia looking for their first title since 1980. The first college football title game with 2 teams from the same conference. After Bama picked off Jake Fromm in the first drive, Jalen Hurts looks to the end zone, overthrowing Calvin Ridley there, Tim.
Yeah, he really had a great opportunity there, and that's where I feel like he started to lose a little bit of confidence after he missed that throw.
Andy Papanastas kick wide left. Alabama unable to capitalize off the Fromm interception. Still scoreless. 1 minute and 41 seconds left in the first. Still scoreless. Georgia faces 3rd and 20. Sony Michel, Marcus, pops out right.
Well, this is what he does. They got into one-back runs to remove some guys from the box. And Sony Michel made guys miss. Great bounce out to the edge and was able to pick up a first down.
But that's not Alabama defense. I mean, the defensive end collapsing, the linebacker getting squeezed, the corner taking the bad angle. That was not Alabama defense. And
Anthony Jennings wasn't playing on that play.
Here's Michel again, taking it over midfield for the first. It's a 14-yard gain.
And long.
2 plays later, 28 seconds left. Fromm guys hitting Terry Godwin for the 16-yard gain.
Look, whatever it was, Alabama defense, they didn't know what to do. I give Georgia a lot of credit. Georgia, they did a tremendous job in the first half, making plays, extending drives, and just giving themselves an opportunity to put points on the board.
Mecole Hardman there with the Wild Dogs, takes it in for the touchdown. And Georgia's up 13-0 after a dominant first half. So to the second half we go, and the third quarter brings a change at quarterback for Bama. It's Tua Tagovailoa in. Opening drive, 3rd and 4. Tua sacked by Roquan Smith. Marcus.
Yeah, and this was a little bit about being a freshman and maybe holding on to the ball too long. But look, you got to give a kid tremendous credit because he just kept chugging away, plugging away.
Great throw.
It was a great throw.
That's a great throw right there.
3rd and 7 here. Tua pressured right, breaking tackles. And, guys, you mentioned this being a huge play in this game, able to scramble
Yeah,
there.
if Georgia makes that tackle, I really don't think Alabama wins the game.
Yeah, and as a defensive player, it breaks your back because you got to line down again and play at least 3 more downs. And what happened? They eventually give up big play.
Alabama campus loves it. And to you guys' point, Tua hitting Robert Foster for another first down.
This was a nice possession for them. And this was one or two early possessions where they got him some quick throws, didn't have to really go through a lot of things.
By the way, that's the same play to the other side.
Absolutely. And he just delivered.
And by the way, that's another freshman, Henry Ruggs. He goes back to him again for the touchdown, Tua does. And that gives Alabama some life. You'll see Jalen Hurts in a moment congratulating his teammate there. So now
great anticipation on that big route.
Jake Fromm trying to respond, and he goes to Mecole Hardman, Marcus.
This is what 11 has been doing all season long. And this was a great play for him to go up 20-7. And it was an answer to what Alabama had just done. And Georgia felt good about this.
I mean, can we talk about Mecole Hardman and the way that he performed?
Explosive now.
I mean,
unreal.
Guys, he said coming into this game he wanted to make a big play. Well, he made more than one.
Talking to Scott Frost on the sideline, he said, man, I wanted that guy so much in high school. He said his highlight video in high school was freakish.
There's Tua getting intercepted. That's DeAndre Baker. Big game for Baker, and he's awarded the Golden Spikes. Saban talking to Tua after the play. Saban said in his press conference that it was just miscommunication. Ensuing Georgia possession, Fromm trying to create, ball batted and then intercepted by Raekwon Davis. This is a weird play, guys.
I mean, look, this is the part we were talking about earlier. Sometimes you just need things to happen for you. Alabama didn't cause this. It bounced off a guy's helmet, of all things, and ended up as an interception. It was a break for Alabama.
So Alabama's going to get the ball back, and ensuing possession, 3rd and 10. Tua pressured this time, throwing incomplete. So then that allows Georgia to hold Alabama to a field goal. To the 4th quarter we go. Another freshman making an impact. Here's where Najee Harris starts to take over, picking up 16 yards right here.
Yeah, and Laura, Najee Harris came in the game. He had 6 carries for 65 yards. He averaged 10 yards a carry. You know what that says? Fresh legs. I got a defense out here that's tired. We're pounding the football. I'm a big physical, #1 recruit in the country at running back, and I'm going to just use my power and run over guys that are tired.
They were in a situation where throughout this year they could rotate those running backs and keep them fresh. And there's Dominic Sanders, that close to an incredible interception, not able to come up with it, Tim.
But again, if he makes that play, game is over.
Yep.
Good point.
Opportunities.
Alabama looking for the stop on 3rd and short, and Sony Michel can't break through right here.
See, this is the part for me that I struggle with the call by Jim Chaney. You ran into the heart of this defense and hadn't had much success. And when they know you're running the football, I thought the perimeter should have been tried again by Georgia there.
How about this pass interference call in a crucial moment of the game?
Yeah, that's a tough call. I mean, it's dealer's choice. It's the judgment of the referee.
Bama inside the 10, 3rd and 3. Damian Harris met in the backfield.
Big Trent Thompson.
Great play.
Playing stout inside.
This is when we got to the field, guys. The Tide decide to go for it on 4th down. Tua pressured, throws for the end zone. Caught by Calvin Ridley right there. Let's take another look at that catch.
Yep.
Calvin Ridley, terrific.
What a great job coming back to the football, giving his quarterback an option.
And a great job by his quarterback keeping his eyes downfield, keeping his eyes, trying to find something.
And that tied it up at 20. Jake Fromm's turn now, 3rd and 3. And Fromm, big play, Tim. You talked about this. Can't find DeAndre Swift.
I mean, it really has a chance. You complete that, gives them an opportunity to go down and win the game.
So now it's Tua's turn to come back in. 1st and 10, and Tua hits Ridley. Ridley finally getting involved in the game here a little more. 9 yards, but Georgia with a face max on the play there.
Big penalty right there because you can line down and possibly keep them out of field goal range, but you add the face mask and you get a little bit closer.
Later in the drive, 3rd and 3, Tua keeps it, picks up the 1st down right there.
I mean, that's just making plays. We saw Jarrett Stidham make the plays against Alabama just like that to continue to extend drives. guys. That was put my head down and get the first down.
It's also being smart, knowing exactly where he had to get to, and being able to maneuver his body to put himself in the best position possible.
Here's Andy Pappanastos for the win here, 36 yards, but it hooks it way left, and so that means free football. We're headed to overtime.
I ain't gonna even lie, I was nervous for that kid. When he missed that field goal, I was nervous for him, man.
It doesn't end up, well, we'll see what happens. Overtime, Georgia 3rd and 6. Jake Fromm here, and you see the freshman moment.
You gotta throw it away. You gotta throw it away. Good thing has what a great kicker.
Yeah, and here comes Rodrigo Blankenship on from 51 yards. Nails it.
What a kicker.
Dude,
what a postseason he had.
Yeah.
He had the first 6 points of the game, too, for Georgia. He was big. Georgia up 3 there. So now Bama with a chance in overtime. And in their first play, Tua with a freshman moment, Marcus.
Yeah, and this is what, I mean, we talked about it, the ups and downs that you would go through by having him in the game. And this was one of those times where you wanted that decision to be better.
But,
you know, Saban's, no. And now he's like, yes.
Look at this, guys. Look at this final play in overtime. Devontae Smith comes up with the touchdown. Alabama wins it 26-23.
And I was emotionally drained.
Minka Fitzpatrick with the championship belt, and that really means a little extra on a night like tonight. Nick Saban lifting his second college football playoff national championship trophy, and Maria Taylor catching up with Devontae Smith, the guy who caught the winning touchdown.
I knew what I wanted to do defensively, and that was what I was after. And it was just kind of working out some details and just kind of getting through, just kind of getting to know each other. You don't just jump out there, and you want to kind of develop a relationship and talk and understand what his family's like, what's Diane like, what's his 2 sons like. Coach loves to hunt, and he loves to get outside, and he's just a ball coach. I mean, and that's what you want. And then you look at, well, okay, he fits the mold of being a great person. His reputation as a coach, when you start looking at, the guy's got 81 draft picks in NFL. That's part of the development of what we're after. Evaluating talent, recruiting them, getting them here, you got to develop them. That's part of the retaining, both on the field and in the classroom.
We've taken a lot of pride in being a great pressure defense. We're going to affect the quarterback. If you want to win in this league, there's 2 things you got to do. You got to win the line of scrimmage, and you got to be able to affect the quarterback. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that. We've kind of got a footprint of that out there already, and it'll change up a little bit depending on our personnel. It changed the last couple years. We're not going to try to put square pegs in the round holes. We're going to do what our personnel will allow us to do. Now, there are certain things that, we're not going to deviate from. It's going to be who we are, and we will be a pressure defense. When you start looking at the personnel, there's some really good talent here at Arkansas. There's no question about that. Is there talent here to win 14 games? Well, it wasn't this past year, but eventually there will be, and I think that's what Coach has been talking about. It's a process, and that process starts in recruiting and recruiting to a certain style that you want to play both offensively and defensively. So, there's some talent here. There's no question about that, and we're looking forward to see it in the off season. We'll continue to evaluate all the way through recruiting, through the all-season program, and then when we get into spring practice, and certainly at the end of spring practice, we'll know a little bit more about where we are. We know some things already. We know there's some areas that we got to try to help ourselves, even in the last half of this recruiting class. There's some things, and I'm not going to talk about those needs, but there's some needs that we need to try to meet in the last half of this recruiting cycle that we're in now.
Program. Drew is up next in Arkansas. Hello, Drew.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I just wanted to get your opinion on the state of Arkansas football and what you think of Chad Morris. And, obviously they're not going to have some success this first year, but do you think there's any room for success within the next 2 to 3 years?
Oh, I definitely do. We've had Coach Morris on here, and I think, as well as the new athletic director, and I really believe, he is going to do a very good job. It's hard to predict. I mean, Tennessee may be in worse shape right now, but it's hard to imagine a program in more disarray prior to him taking over than the Arkansas situation. But you know, there's still some questions about how he's going to immerse his offensive philosophy with the talent on the field. You have certainly seen and heard that, but I think he'll be able to do it in time.
Well, yeah, I hope so, because we need something good around here.
I hope so. Listen,
it's hard to compete in the West.
Yeah, listen. No reason to spend a lot of time on Bielema. That whole debacle shocked me very much because I always believed he was a very good football coach. Didn't work out, but let's talk about Arkansas in 2018, what they will be facing in terms of their schedule. Certainly a manageable beginning with Eastern Illinois, Colorado State, and North Texas, and then it gets more difficult at Arkansas, at Auburn. A&M is just a team that has haunted Arkansas, and then Alabama. That could be a rough 3-game stretch. Ole Miss at home, Tulsa, Vandy. So certainly getting Vanderbilt from the other side is a tremendous advantage. You're getting the worst team or one of the worst teams from the SEC East. You have LSU and Ole Miss at home. There's some possible winnable games, but you know, I think Arkansas fans just need to take things slowly.
Woo Pig Suey. Chad Morris's first class almost all in the book. Still waiting on a couple of signatures they hope to gain, but they do have an ESPN 300 player, a quarterback. We will discuss him just a little bit. Of course, they hit Arkansas and Texas, as you would imagine, for the former SMU head coach. As we make our way to Northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville is the spot. We find Chad Morris now. Coach, once you got to Arkansas, what did you identify as biggest areas of needs in recruiting, and how do you feel you've done?
Well, I felt like our biggest need was speed. We had to go and target, you know, players with great speed, quickness, lateral movement. That was the biggest need for us, and obviously on the defensive side of the ball in particular. So this signing class was a little bit more heavy defensive than offense, but that was by design. It's a small class.
Chad, as you know, obviously in the SEC, there's no doubt that the games are always won, not just in this league, but in every league, on the line of scrimmage, both sides of the football. Knowing how your offense operates, high tempo, fast speed, spread people out, obviously defensively, sometimes you end up, you know, being on the field a little bit more than a normal conventional offense. And knowing that the defensive line and the front seven in this league is going to win games for you, how do you feel about where you are in the defensive recruiting, particularly in the front seven?
Well, I felt like, you know, and we signed 4, by the way, and got a couple more out there right now. But, you know, I felt like that if you're going to oversign, or I say oversign, if you're going to be heavy in your numbers, be heavy in the D-line. And for those guys, for the depth that it's going to take to compete in this league and play against some of the offenses that are in this league, and obviously with the offense that we have being very fast paced, we've got to have some depth in that defensive line, and in particular we got to be able to rush the passer.
Chad, you alluded to it with the philosophical change that you'll bring to Arkansas. Excuse me. How do you see your offensive personnel now matching to what you want to do offensively, and do you feel confident about some guys, or is it going to take a year or so until you have exactly what you want in order to run this offense?
Yeah. Well, you know, we've been in mat drills, we've been out there and watching them and watching them compete. That's hard to say right now. I know this, and I'm a very impatient person. So to say it's going to take a year to get this, no, I don't buy that. We're going to go at it from the get-go, and we're excited about it. I think our players are extremely excited about the upbeat and the way that the way things are going right now, and the fast pace that we do everything in. And you know, we always talk about being a hurry-up football team. It's not just what you do on the field. It's also the way you train. It's the way you do things in the office. It truly is a lifestyle.
Coach, talking about that offense, you were able to land a very talented passer in Connor Noland. What does he bring in? Potentially, what type of role could baseball play in his time there at Arkansas? I understand he's a very good baseball player. Have you had discussions with potentially being able to balance both of those?
Well, we have, and you know, he was part of our what we call our Great Eight, the 8 guys that signed with us in December, and you know, he was a young man from right here in Greenwood, here in the state of Arkansas, and we're excited about him. A phenomenal baseball player that's going to come up and play baseball for our university as well. Just a great competitor, and we're excited about him and what he brings to the table, as well as we signed another quarterback today in John Stephen Jones. So we feel like we've got 2 guys that'll come in and contribute.
John Stephen.
Yeah. Chad, real quick, last question. Total different philosophies on offense. You got a team that was huddle and ground and pound and things of that nature. Now all of a sudden, you know, we're opening up. We've got speed on the perimeter. We're working on mismatches. We're working on tempo. How have they bought into that? Are they excited about that? I know there are a lot of teams when you go from that type of offense to the spread, high tempo, fast pace, players get extremely excited about that.
Yeah, you know what? What I've seen is obviously the excitement from the players in that, but and then the training starts, and they realize that the work that's got to be put in, and the mad drills, and all just the relentless in the running that we have to do to get us in that type of shape. And you know, it's been very well receptive to our players. There's been some guys that kind of look at you a little crazy in the amount of running that we're doing right now, but that's okay. You know, that's part of it, and this is what we do. We've won our whole life. We know how to win. This will win, and you're going to jump on board with us, and it's going to be a lot of fun along the way.
Chad, you mentioned earlier you're not a patient person. I think our cue is it's time to let you go. I think
there you go.
You spent your time with us. Go spend your time with your guys. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Rakeem Boyd, a running back, which we felt like in this league, you've got to have depth at back. We've got 4 on the roster. He would count 5 on scholarship. We have, and we'll talk a little bit more about making some changes throughout the course of getting into spring ball to make sure we got plenty of depth at running back as we enter spring. Joe Fouché, a defensive back out of New Orleans, McDonald 35. Extremely excited about him. Noah Gatlin, big offensive lineman from right here in our great state in Jonesboro. Addresses a need. I think you see that we've signed 3 offensive linemen in this class, 2 of those big offensive tackles, and we're excited about them. Noah Gatlin being one of them. John Stephen Jones, a quarterback out of Highland Park, a program we're extremely familiar with. And a winner, a state championship appearance and back-to-back state championships, winning the last 2 years, and one of the most historic winningest programs in the state of Texas, and extremely excited about having him. Miles Mason, a big-time safety out of Alabama at a Hewitt-Trussville, a young man that meets some needs that we've got to have, brings quickness, brings explosion, and the closer he gets to the football, the faster and more violent he becomes. We're really excited about him. He was a young man that 61 days ago we targeted, and in his relationship with Coach Chavis really built in, and to be able to land that young man was very critical for us. Andrew Parker, a linebacker out of Sophie B. Wright there in New Orleans, a young man that came down literally to the wire. And finally got his signing papers in, but this is a young man that's got an incredible upside, a huge upside that I believe the sky is the limit for him. Very meets all the intangibles, extremely fast. He's big. He's got the height and